Frank, do you know what the term Project Mbappe means?
Young players, I guess, in the modern day that you're trying to make into the next Mbappe.
With your father, are you the result of his very own Project Lampard?
Well, yeah, I am.
Frank Lampard, one of the greatest midfielders to ever play in the Premier League.
I don't know if we'll ever have a midfielder that gets those types of numbers again. It's just phenomenal what he's done.
What age did you start playing football?
I played my first game over the park, 4 or 5. My dad took me over there and just pushed me in there. Go on, son.
Your dad, he was quite strong with you. Do you think that kids are resilient enough to be able to handle that nowadays?
Now, I think you do have to be a bit more careful how you deliver the message. My dad was putting a black bag on me and running me 2 miles around the block with him when I was 8 years old. That wasn't probably not normal as such at the time.
What age did your dad get you to start using spikes?
Really young. I'd probably say about 10 years of age.
Do you think even before you were born, he wanted you to be a footballer?
Yeah, I'd say so.
What were you like as a little kid?
A bit shy, I would say.
Okay.
You weren't shy on that,
Taking it back for when you were like 5, 6 years old, do you think scouts now would scout a Frank Lampard? Hello and welcome back to Project Footballer, the voice of youth football. We had an amazing reaction from the last episode that we did with Jamie, Paul and Harry Redknapp. The feedback that we got was incredible. We're excited for this episode today. Key thing that came back from the episode was that people really, really liked that you guys talked about the journeys of your children who are in grassroots and academy football. So before we bring in the guest, yeah, we thought we'd, it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about, how the week has gone for the boys.
Yeah, good. Freddie, I went and watched Freddie the last Sunday against Southampton and Charlton.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was good. I enjoy watching. I think the games are the bonus. I think that, believe it or not, I think the training's the more important thing. I think the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday trains at Chelsea, and I think the icing on the cake comes Sunday. But I think the main thing for me is the training, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I've got 3 boys. So Charlie's 19. He plays rugby in Arizona. He's in university there. Bo's 15. He's been at Brentford, which are starting their academy, hopefully next year, and he's enjoying that, doing well. I'm seeing a real progression in him at the moment. He's starting to get a bit bigger, stronger, and enjoying his football and getting confident, which is a really important thing. I think that's one thing that I'm sure a lot of parents will get from this, is how you find a way of getting your kids confident. Rafa's 2, his left foot's coming on. We're getting him out, we're getting him out there hitting the target as much as possible. He doesn't want to play with that outside of the foot like you much yet, but no, it's been great. And I've watched a lot of football. I went to watch Fulham's youth team a couple of times. They've got some fantastic young players. I love the way they're coached. That's a really good academy. I think they do it so well there. One of my good friends, his boy Reggie Walsh is in the England under 16s.
Yeah.
So is it the 08s, I think they are. Yeah, 2008 boys.
Yeah.
So I went over to watch them in Spain, Alicante, and they played against Saudi, the game that I watched, and a couple of other games, and some talent coming through. Wow. I saw a few boys. There's a young boy at Arsenal, Paul, Max Dowman. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's one of the best young players I've seen in a long time. Yeah, beautiful footballer. Just it's effortless for him, and he's a year younger as well.
And what position too?
So he can play number 10, number 8. He could put him anywhere on the pitch. He's a special talent, and it looks like he's got a really good family around him. Very grounded. Super impressed. Don't want to put too much pressure on young players. It's quite dangerous.
How old is he, Joe?
So he'll be 14 at the moment.
Wow.
But he was playing sort of against 16-year-olds.
Wow.
Super talent, and Reggie was really good as well. And there's a lot of good players. I watched Josh King play, a young boy at Fulham.
Yeah, I know him.
He's super talent, midfielder. He's been playing for England throughout all the levels as well. So I've enjoyed it. Watched a lot of games. I'm enjoying. Love watching the Premier League, and I think Paul mentioned it this week about we're going to have one of the best title races in years. But I always take it back, and it always reminds me a little bit of my granddad. He watched so much football growing up. He used to go watch all the youth team games and under 14s, under 15s in the park in East London. And I love that. I love trying to spot a talent, and thinking, cool. And someone tells you he can play, and you go, I'm not sure about him. I like him. He's the one. You're a bit like that.
Yeah,
mate.
no, I did. I see that at Chelsea the other week. Went over and watched a couple of kids, and the kid that I looked at was like he played at number 6. I didn't catch his name. I think I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, oh my God, he's good. And everybody was like, oh really? I went, oh my God, yeah, he's the best player on the pitch. He'd done everything right. He played as a 6. He reminded me like of a young Rodri. Do you know what I mean? He just done the simple things very well. He was disciplined. He didn't get involved with like what he wasn't good at, and he kept it simple. Yeah, I love watching kids. Some people go, "Oh my God, he's going to be the best I've ever seen," and I'm like, "Oh, not sure about that one."
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and there's other players that don't. So yeah, but football changes week in, week out, doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
Week in, week out.
There was another remember John Ridgeon, the runner. John Ridgeon, he was 110-metre hurdles, 400-metre hurdles, I think. His son, Seth, he played for England as well. He was a super talent.
Oh, really?
And the best 3 players were actually the boys that from my opinion, were the younger ones. So, it was good. And what about, so we've got a good guest today. Have you got your shirt on, number 8?
No, I haven't as it goes yet. To be fair, I did buy a thing at an auction a while back for Freddie. The captain, his armband signed by him.
Really?
Now I'm wishing, why did I buy that? I might have just brought one in myself and got it signed today.
When you think about our guest today, Sean, what's your memories when you think of Frank?
Legend.
Yeah.
Like absolute legend and goal scorer. Really sort of like inspirational person, and one of the best players that ever's played in the Premier League.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever have a midfielder that gets those types of numbers again. It's just phenomenal what he's done.
No, absolutely not. No, I think, unbelievable. And played in an era where there was a lot of good players in that position. You talk about Gerrard, you talk about Scholes, you talk about the guests we're going to have. Like, you're talking like world-class players, do you know what I mean? And he was one of them. I mean, that will never be done again, what he's done. I don't personally think so. I think, what was it, 5, 6, 7 years on the trot? 20
plus goals, yeah. And a lot of it, he never got the credit for the assists as well.
Yeah.
Get him in?
Let's get him in. Let's get Project Lampard. Even as he comes in, it's a late run in. Just arriving late. I was like, I'm aware, and all of a sudden he's behind you and the ball's in the back of the net. Where did that? What happened there?
Frank, do you know what the term Project Mbappe means?
No.
Okay.
I can guess.
Go on, what's your guess?
I've seen it used. No, I guess, is it young players, I guess, in the modern day that you're trying to make into the next Mbappe? Parents, maybe, or coaches, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Mbappe's a superstar, so it's, can you make your child into a footballer?
Not easy, that.
So my first question to you.
Well, this is actually what we're trying to figure out. Frank.
Yeah.
Between us, Sean is a top youth coach. Obviously, Merce, myself have been lucky enough to do it. And having a guest like you, we're trying to get what is the magic recipe to make a footballer. I think that's really what we're trying to get.
That's it. And with your father, like, are you the result of his very own Project Lampard?
Well, yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yes, to a degree. I think it's a long debate. I suppose we're talking nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
So I think I was definitely a project.
Okay.
And Jamie will have understanding of that. Obviously, I know that from at close hand. But I think, you look back on your career and fate and your early parts of it, and you can think of all the things that are in your favour or against you or whatever. And everyone's got challenges to try and make as a footballer because it's such a low percentage do.
Yeah.
But one of the big things I had in my favour was that I had at close quarters, a dad that made me a project. Maybe he was a frustrated ex-left back, so I was never going to be a left back. He was like, get yourself higher up the pitch, because he'd probably watched the Brookings and the Devonshires and players in front of him, some great players at West Ham in his day, that probably got more headlines than him. So I know that he used to sort of say stuff like that to me. So I was probably naturally a midfield player anyway, but I had the benefit of a great knowledge. So as a young kid, and I think it's different now, everyone, lots of parents, for good and for bad, I'm sure we'll talk about it, have an idea about what they think is Project Mbappe and what you need to do. My dad had a great understanding of it in that day, so I was helped by that without a doubt.
So what were you like as a little kid?
As a player or as a lad?
Lad.
Probably quite a bit shy, I would say.
Okay.
You weren't shy in Iron Apple.
No, I was 7 to 7. No, I actually was a bit. I was. You definitely were. You weren't.
Stop
you
it.
weren't.
That's a different episode.
So you learn from the best. I learned from my dad about football. I learned from Jamie about Iron Apple. So no, I think no. I wanted to please. I was a bit like that at school. So I had the benefit of being sort of, I would say, probably middle class, maybe a touch better than that. My dad's football career didn't pay like it does these days, but I went to a private school.
Yeah.
So I was very attentive at school. I was probably a good student, not like ultra top of the class, but I wasn't middle-ish and always pushed myself, probably because of the main thing, I wanted to please my teacher. I had that kind of nature about me. So in the same way, I wanted to please my parents. So my mum would always have been the sensitive figure in my life, the one that would be a bit softer and definitely more emotion to her. And my dad more of a hard taskmaster. So I kind of wanted to please everybody, I would say, as a kid. And that probably followed through. And you do drop those, like Jamie jokes there about at 17 you're a bit different. At 22 when I moved to Chelsea, different again. 27 playing for your country, and that better, more confident, more trusting in myself. But as a youngster, I think as probably a lot of youngsters, they will show it in different ways.
Yeah.
But that was my way.
And you had two sisters as well.
Yeah.
So that were both older than you. So you didn't really have like a brother to go and play football in the garden with, I guess, to a certain extent. And in those days, we joke about there's more kids that seem to have gone to private schools that are coming through. But you were known as a private school boy. I think Graham Lasso and yourself were probably the only two that came from that background. You know, and it was quite unique to have a kid that came from that. Whereas I do think there's a bit of a change with kids from private schools. But no, I get that you were shy, but you also had, from a very early age, an unbelievable work ethic. You listened to people, you took on information really well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, because it goes too far back to know whether that was sort of an innate thing in me on the nature side, or I just had that from the environment I grew up in, because my dad was sort of famed in a West Ham sense for his training ethic, and that he'd worked so hard as a young boy to become a player, and again, it comes down to circumstances. And my dad probably came from a much tougher upbringing. Well, he certainly came from a tougher upbringing than me.
Yeah.
He lost his dad when he was 2 years of age. He grew up in Canning Town, in a very working class environment. So my dad's options were probably not great options, or become a football player. So that was probably what his motivations were. Mine were obviously different. I had a better upbringing. So he probably passed on those sort of motivations to me, even though I was in a much more settled environment.
Do you think even before you were born, he wanted you to be a footballer?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Really?
I'd say so, yeah. I think so. And maybe he saw it in simple terms because of how his life had been, as I just explained. It was that. Hang around with maybe the wrong crowd, or be a footballer.
Okay.
I think my options were more than that. So I think I could have probably gone down different routes because of what I had. And I think even more in the modern day, I've got, my 4 children now, my young son.
Yeah.
Particularly loves booting a ball around now. He's just turning 3. And he will have lots more options. I see it already, because my option was to kick the ball against the wall at the front of the house. His option is to sit on the iPad for longer, or watch any episode of anything at any moment. Do you know what I mean? We never had that. It was like, if you miss Grange Hill, you're not watching it later on. Do you know what I mean? You got to watch tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? And that was it, to go and kick the ball around,
Yeah. Well, like kids now, I mean, like you've seen it, Paul, Jamie, like kids are starting football from literally like 4 years old now. What age did you start playing football?
Yeah, probably as long as I can remember.
All right.
I played my first game over the park near where I grew up. It was walking distance, and I went over there at 4 or 5. And my dad took me over there and just pushed me in there. Go on, son. And I would have been nervous too. I remember scoring an own goal. I got my ends mixed up, and I've scored it. And I sort of celebrated. I celebrated. Everyone was looking at me, and I never forget the moment of fear. And it's sort of, I didn't want to be there anyway. I love my football, but it was like, go and get in there. And I got a lot of that in my career. Like I remember lots of things in my dad. I started, as you say, I started young. But my dad was always, and I don't know whether you both went through this, because my dad was so vocal, it was always like short corners. He'd want me to go over and get it short. And I didn't really want it. I was at 8 or 9 years of age and we're playing. We're like, go on, get it in the box. There's a chance to get it in the box. Old school, you know. And he'd go and get it short. And I used to like pretend not to hear him. I'll go and get it short. And I'll go and give it away in the corner. Like I wasn't immersed. I wouldn't kind of manipulate it and kind of go, I'll find something from there. I was a bit different. So, but my point is, I suppose, he was always very pushy like that. And to the point where I didn't always like it. So my memories of growing up are loving football. It was all I ever loved. But also feeling the pressure, which was obviously a good thing for me at the end, but in the end, because it was part of what made me a player, I guess.
What, Frank? When from a young age, what did you always think you're going to be a midfield player? Did you always think, right, this is how I'm going to play? I want to play this, or was you playing left back, right back, centre forward, or was it just one position?
Yeah, I probably always a midfield player. I think again that was probably conformed by my dad a bit. He probably saw me as that. I think it did suit my attributes. I remember wanting to play up front a little bit. I never would have had probably that pace or that little bit of injection up top, and I think that was quite clear. Even at my time, I thought that's the way you score more goals, you know, a natural thing. And I remember in my school, I jumped into the first 11 or whatever they called it in the private school. I was a third year, so I was playing like 3 or 4 years up, and they put me at left back, and I didn't love it, but I actually really appreciated it afterwards, and then probably during it a bit, just recognising a different position, sort of working those things out. But other than that, it was probably always a midfield player. But I definitely had things that I needed to improve to become the modern day midfield player, even as what it was then. You know, people like I probably would have looked up to, would have been the ones at that age, maybe a bit young, but Brian Robson was like box to box, looked up to him as a player, and I was probably athletically a bit chubby, couldn't really get up and down. So my dad probably was Project Lampard was. Get more stamina. You got to be up and down, get yourself in the box. Don't be content just to be on the halfway line, all that stuff.
And what about this environment with you guys playing football in the garden, Jamie?
Well, I think it's something that I was actually going to ask Frank there, because we're trying to figure out what it takes with parents, because the questions that we always get asked is, what's the best way to deal with a young talent? Now, when I think back to your dad, he was quite strong with you. You know, in certain games, he'd be vocal on the sidelines. Do you think that parents can be that way now? Thierry Henry was alluding to it in an interview about his dad. He was very similar. Do you think that kids are resilient enough to be able to handle that nowadays?
Yeah, probably not, I would say. Maybe that's a bit of a generalisation. There might be occasional. I heard the Henry interview and I was interested. I didn't know that at all about Thierry. I found it really interesting because you look at a player like Thierry, you just imagine everything went beautifully for him. Then you look at that talent, it was always going to happen. And then he speaks emotionally about those things. And you realise that sometimes everything more important than football, because as much as he does, on the interview I heard, he praises the fact that it helped him get where he went. It can give you different issues down the line as well in your relationship with people. So I think it depends on the parent as well. Where do you want to be? Because I certainly didn't like my dad at times for being so hard on me. Now I respect it because it gave me a career. That's my story. I think in the modern day now, I think you do have to be a bit more careful how you deliver the message. I certainly would be different from the experience of being with my dad, but I don't think you should take away some of the basics that get drilled and enforced into you, because I think some of those have to be quite firm. The softy approach for me, we just, I think, have to be a bit more aware how we deliver the message. I would say that's probably how I would want to be as a parent with any of my children if they started to get to a position where I actually think, no mate, they do have the talent here, but they do need to learn this side of the game. I would deliver it softer than my dad. Well, for whether that's right or wrong, I think that's a personal issue. But I do feel the benefit of being in the football as a career. I have an understanding. I do get frustrated with parents that I see that don't have an understanding of the game, that are being very forceful and passing the wrong message on to children in a forceful way. And even the other children aren't even their kid.
Yeah. So if we were taking Project Freddie Lampard now, how are you going to bring him up? How are you going to make him understand what it takes, the hard work and the dedication like you had? If he wants to be a footballer, that is.
Yeah, true. Yeah, if he does, I'll probably gauge it as I go, because at the minute I'm learning as a dad, because my daughters have never shown interest. They've had different interests. But my boy Freddie, he does love it at first glance. But I'm learning, because I'm trying to probably ask too much of him in a minute. because he literally wants to kick a ball now. He just wants to kick it, and I'm trying to put it on his left foot. I'm trying to get him to dribble it. I don't want to know. Do you know what
I know the feeling,
Time
mate.
that run, holding his shirt, holding it, then letting him go.
So it's
You're
like,
bringing in a kid to play like they've got Makalele roll, someone there, and then,
Getting play dates at 3. You just come in.
But I swear, your dad, I swear you talked about how you had a really, really like bad game at one point when you were 11 years old and like you just wanted to go home, but your dad was like, no, look, you got the pen and paper out, and he said you weren't tracking your runners.
Yeah.
And you actually spoke about how that benefited you and it
Yeah.
gave you a massive advantage.
I remember that to this day because I got done on a 1-2.
Right.
I went in for that one and then played round me and I didn't go for that. And it was really simple. He did the diagram. And I suppose like I'm probably going against my own argument because that sticks in my head to this day.
Yeah.
And, you know, it became a part of my game to not try and get done. Got done occasionally, but you learn the ideas. So with Project Freddie, I would probably gauge it. I've already learned that I can't ask him to do too much. Like if he is, the beauty for him now is just the fact that he loves kicking the ball. I'm in it for that. I'll kick the ball with him all day. There'll be a step.
He's 3 years old, yeah?
He's turning 3 next week.
Okay.
Yeah, so he does like that. But then again, he'll go off on his iPad. I'll be, do you want to play football? And he'll be like, no, for a minute. So there are loads of different things that I'm coming to terms with that were not my growing up. You know, so it's different.
we're quite relaxed about it though. As long as they both play for England, we're all right. But it's funny because we speak, you know, every now and again we talk about the boys, and Rafa's 2, he's a little bit younger. And it's like, how's he getting on? You know, it's great. You know, got the balance because Freddie's right-footed, Rafa's left-footed. You know, we can see that midfield, and it's like, we love it, don't we?
Yeah.
It's never going to change. It's like, but sometimes I'm, you know, because of the amazing thing I find, and it's the same with Paul, with your Freddie and Rafa, and your Freddie, that we know how hard it is. We know it's almost impossible to become a professional footballer, but we are still going to do everything in our power to try and make it or enable it. And, well, there's only so much you can do, but we love it so much, but we also know how difficult it is.
Yeah, it is, and I'm interested in the project. It's the first time, hopefully, with Freddie, if he does show the intention that he wants to, of how it will look, because I've only lived my journey and I've got opinions on it through my journey, but it might be a bit different for him, how much he wants it, how much he wants to be driven, what life looks like for him now. I would love him to be a footballer, and I never felt that emotion until I've had him, and I'm sensing it now. I see a lot of my friends are parents, and they're so invested in it, and I used to look at it and go, oh, right, okay, I'd had daughters who weren't interested in it, and now at the minute he is, so I can see all the emotions that you've had before, and now obviously with Rafa again. It's exciting though. I like that. You come to a time in your life where it's actually a good focus for me now to have something like that. I've never had that.
So Freddie, he's 9 years of age. Someone plays a 1-2 on him. Are you getting the diagram out?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So for as much as I say that my dad used to get on my nerves, I'll get the diagram out. I might use different language at different times how my dad was, but that's just how he was. That was part of his makeup as a person. I'm definitely a bit different to him in my way. But I will get a diagram because I do. I mean, I'm fortunate to have played and now I've coached for a good few years. So you do learn. I sometimes do equate, and I think this is actually just parenting as a whole. You know, like how you parent is how you manage. It's just a grown-up version of managing. Sometimes you got to try and, you know, inspire people. Or what's the best way so a visual is always a good way. The diagram sticks in my head.
Gives you a picture, doesn't it?
It does.
It gives you
absolutely
pictures.
gives you a picture. Like analysis now, we never had that as players.
Yeah.
Do we really? Like it came in, but you'd probably watch it. Now it's being broken down for you by the coach and all these things. And young academy players, I found it at Derby actually when I managed. It was my first job, so I was learning all the time. But older players didn't want to watch themselves back, didn't want too much analysis. It was almost like how I would have been. It was, you know, it wasn't our thing. Whereas the younger players who've been through the academies were like, go and tell me, they come to you in the office, can you show me the things that you're not happy with and all that? So everything's changed in that sense. So I think you can start to be much more, you can get those visuals and give the information.
But that's where a danger can come, because a parent, well, there's two things that we've just taken from this first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to listen, because if you go and listen to that Stephen Bartlett interview with Thierry, there is dads out there that'll go, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shout at my kid. I'm going to get the best at him. You don't know if that's going to work. And then secondly, what Frank's going to do is because he's got unbelievable knowledge, he's played 600 games or whatever, he knows what it takes to track back and do the right things. Whereas a parent might start telling their kid, but they're telling them completely the wrong thing because they don't know really what it takes or how, you know, you play, and you think you know it, but sometimes until you've actually done it or been out on the pitch, it isn't that easy, Merce, is it?
No, it isn't. I mean, I always say, I think pictures, you know, I'm the same with Freddie. I do it with Freddie. Exactly what Frank Senior done with Frank is I show him stuff. just to show on the ball, like to go, right, when the ball's here, you want to be thinking about being here or there, and just give him pictures. Pictures are so important on a football pitch. I mean, brain beats anything, in my opinion. Brain beat, that's not luck what Frank does when he arrives arrives late in the box and scores goals. That's not luck. That's brain. That's why I always say it's all about the brain. Football brain wins. A puncher will beat a boxer 1 out of 10 times. That's all. The boxer will batter the puncher always because he'll outthink him, and that's why I always try and give Freddie pictures. It's all about what to see on a football pitch, what you should be looking for, and where to be. And that's why, Freddie ain't going to beat 6 players and score a goal. No way. He ain't going to do that. Them days are long gone.
So can I just say on that, you reminded me of saying pictures there, because that was my dad saying to me, and it was have pictures of the game in your head. Mm-hmm. And nowadays we call it scanning. And I was a relentless scanner. Didn't even know it, really. It became such a natural thing for me. I know that was definitely pushed by my dad. It was have a picture of the game and what's around you and what's behind you. So I just naturally did it all the time. I was looking around to see what was there.
So all this stuff can be learned. I mean, Paul's boy is doing so well at Chelsea in the under-9s, and one of the things that people talk about Freddie is his intelligence and his awareness. And I think, because I've coached him since he's been like 6, so I've seen his journey, and I literally think, Paul, I think you've had a massive influence on it with all the conversations that you're having. I even think with Freddie in the car journeys and like listening to you on the phone, I'm sure he's like soaking up information.
But he'll watch players. If we go and watch Chelsea a lot, so I'll say watch him or watch him. Freddie's always looking around. Always. When I ever played football, that's all I ever done. If there was a throw on, I'd be looking around like that. I'd be scanning where everything is. You next time you're sitting indoors and a cricket game's on, watch a cricketer come in. A good cricketer who bats from 1 to 5, 1 to 6, every ball will look around, see where they are. And they won't get caught on the boundary. But a number 11 comes in, he just goes, "Oh, give me middle," and then he smashes it, gets caught, and he goes, "I didn't know it. What was he doing there?"
Yeah.
And that's, even his scanning. I always, every time there's a throw, I'd be.
This is.
I knew what I was going to do before I got the ball. I think Frank, when he scores goals, and Jamie when he's passing the ball, Frank will see the build-up. He'll see where people are. Where am I going to make in a run? It's not luck. It's a brain, and people underestimate a football brain, and that's why I think people just think, oh, Frank arrived in the box. Oh, that was lucky. Gary Lineker was the best. He used to hit the post, come back. He was 3 yards out. He'd tap it in. People go, I could have scored that. Well, you couldn't have because no one else was standing there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
This has become a really, I would say, a new word, scanning. I hear a lot of parents talk about it, and you've got to scan. In 2 seconds, the ball comes into someone and they get caught and they go, you've got to scan. Now, a good player has figured out 10, 15, 20 seconds ago, 2 passes before where it's going next if it comes to them. So the scanning, if you're scanning at the last second, that's too late. You've got to have a visualization of where everybody is on the pitch. And when you're playing well, that is so natural. And don't get me wrong, there was plenty of times when I felt like I had blinkers on and you just can't see where a player is on the pitch because your confidence is low and you can't quite see it. But this thing about scanning, you've got to tell your kids to know where the ball is going to come 2 passes before it's even come to you. And if you know that, you've got half the chance. Would you agree, Frank?
I completely agree. And I think the thing for me in terms of giving the information, whether you be a parent or a coach, is like, why are you scanning? Like, it's easy for a parent or a coach to say you have to scan and look round. What are you looking for? What space are you looking for? Where's the pressure coming from? All those things. So I think, again, in terms of information, giving the right information, these buzzwords, I flick sometimes on social media, and I have coaches telling me all these things, and you kind of think, yeah, but practically why? What is that session for, and what is it doing? I'm sure there's a lot of great coaches out there, but if it was my boy, I'd be like, so here's why you're scanning for, because if you've got someone, you might have to bop it off one touch, and then you've got to move again, and then you've got to see what's on the other side of the pitch. So yeah, and a lot of that's natural. You say that Mercy's Freddie is benefited from Merce. Of course he has, but he's also benefited from his DNA, because he's probably got a bit where he's going like, I've got the abilities. I think that we come back to nature and nurture. Definitely, you got to have something. I think you can scan, but if you haven't got the presence of the touch or the feel of it, then I think you can scan, but it doesn't matter. So I think it's always both, in my opinion.
We had, so Frank and I growing up, just so if people don't realise, our mums were sisters, because people probably think your talent we're first cousins, but the talent come from the dads. Obviously, it came from our mums and Papa Bill, who's a carpenter, who had no ability, did he, whatsoever, but he could make a birdcage. And so Frank, we were, sometimes nepotism would get levelled at us. Which obviously was proved completely unfounded in the end. But do you think that if you hadn't had the background and your dad, etc., do you think you'd have still made a footballer?
Oh, I wouldn't be sure. No, I wouldn't be sure, because I don't think my natural talent was that standout. I was never probably the best kid at school or in my team at Heath Park or whatever, as I went up the ranks in West Ham youth team.
So you wasn't even the best team in your grassroots. You wasn't even the best player in your grassroots team.
No, I mean I would say it'd be a close call, but I had Michael Black was in my team and come through at Arsenal. And his brother Tommy Black was a bit younger, came through after me. Michael Black was the one that we were all talking about. And then in the West Ham youth team, I had Lee Hodges and Manny. I can't pronounce his second name, Manny, but they were in England under 15s and 16s, and I wasn't. So, and I was jealous of them. Do you know what I mean? So, as part of it was probably that innate thing inside me that I wanted to be. I always had an ability an obsession to train to try and make up gaps. But I don't think without the absolute force of pressure around me that I necessarily would have made it, because I don't think my talent was that standout. My biggest talent was my work ethic and my drive and my push, in my opinion.
Do you think, in this day and age now, do you think that goes under the carpet, the work rate? Do you know the importance? People think, other things, but the main thing you've got, I always say, I said it on the last show, there's one thing you've got to have to be a professional footballer, and if you haven't got that, you'll never be one, is hard work.
Yeah.
Is hard work. I think that gets brushed under the carpet a lot. I think people go, talent. But if you haven't got that work ethic, you've got to work hard.
I do. I agree with it. And you know what I find slightly frustrating is that there are so many now. We all have so much video thrown in our faces, and I say thrown is the wrong word. Good stuff. You know, you see Kobe Bryant will come up and talk about his career, and it'll be I was up at 4 a.m. and bang, bang, bang. LeBron, all of them, all of the stories of the top athletes generally. And a lot of the young players will be influenced by it. And I'm a big fan of his. But then they miss the point of that you actually got to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like you can talk about it a lot, and because these elite sportsmen can talk about it and it's part of their story. But what does that look like for you? So what does that mean if you're a winger? Because I've had conversations as a coach about arriving at the back post, like Raheem Sterling did for City, like Mo Salah does. All the best wingers now, they've got to score 15 goals plus this season or they're not worth their salt, really. And you can see the nodding sometimes, yeah, of course you have. And you go, okay, so what does that need? It needs stamina, because you've got to be able to arrive there. It means understanding that when the ball's on that side, you're already inside and wanting to do it and taking all those things. And a lot of it is hard work and dedication and application on repeating the same thing again and again to be that good at it. So it becomes like something you don't even think about.
Would you say that you were such a hard-working player because of your dad?
That's the one I can't answer, because it was so young. I've only known my life as this. I've only known my life as a dad that was pushing me. So if he wasn't there to push me in that young...
Would you have gone for those runs that you used to go for?
But possibly not, because I was sort of... My dad was putting a black bag on me and running me 2 miles around the block with him when I was 8 years old. That wasn't probably not normal as such at the time. My mates weren't doing it for sure. So I don't know whether that became me. So I don't know the answer to that. I'd guess maybe not.
Okay. Can you remember your inner voice? Like, as a young player coming up, can you remember the type of things that would be going on in your mind?
Yes and no. I mean, like, it's weird. I probably grew up with where it was quite a straight, my upbringing, in terms of, like, it wasn't like I never had the... do this, son, and you'll become a professional. It was like, if you don't do it, you won't become a professional. It was almost more of a fear element of how easy it is to foul. So I probably was a bit more stressed than seeing the positives. I need to make it as a footballer. So I put pressure on myself. So I need to do all these things that I'm being told I need to do. Extra this, extra that. Be fitter, be this, be better with my left foot, be better at this. So the inner voice was one probably of always... wanting to be better, which is quite a stressful thing as a kid, because you're actually always feeling that. But I don't want to make it sound too stressful. My life growing up was probably from about 12 years of age, training at Arsenal 1 night a week, training at Tottenham 1 night a week, training at West Ham 1 night a week, playing for my school team Wednesdays and Saturdays and playing for Heath Park, my club team, on Sunday. So I was so much engulfed in all this sort of training that it was all there. It was there for me, and I just had to work through it all. And at the same time, I was picking up different things from all these different great coaches. Johnny Martin back at Tottenham back in the day was an amazing coach for young players. At Tottenham, they were doing step overs and things. At West Ham was a bit more old school. Arsenal was a great academy that was sort of at that time. So I was fortunate that I was picking up so many different things, and I had the football family.
I think that helped us as well, because it's 5 years between Frank and I. And I used to get a lot of satisfaction talking to you sometimes. And I think, we'd work in the summer holidays. Frank would come down with his mum and dad, and we'd go out in the garden for hours and just practice and play and try to learn off each other. And I think that was also so important.
Yeah, so many things are just practical things. That's why hard work and training is the answer. Because when I went down to Jamie's house, we used to hit the bird cage. I was probably focused on a lot of other things. I was never probably at that point where Jamie was different and would probably be more of a midfield player that find passes. I was more of a get up and down of trying to arrive in the box. So when I see that, and I watched Jamie clip a ball with a different technique so I sucked that up. I saw him doing it. He was hitting it much more than me, and hitting it and bending it and then fizzing it and all these things. And I remember taking that on board. Without that, would I have, moved on another little step? So I was, all the good bits that were there for me, the luck of the football environment at the time was that it was there. And probably the good things that I can probably take a bit of credit myself was that I took them all on board, and I was fortunate to be able to look up to someone like you, because you were that 5 years ahead of me. Jamie was in the Liverpool first team when I was still a kid, and I was like, I want to be that. How do I get there? It's got to be work. It's just practice.
You hold the record in the Premier League for the most goals outside the box. 41 goals outside the box. How does that happen? Yeah.
Again, same answer, and it's practice. It's I probably, I had a decent technique for as long as I can remember. Like, I could shoot, but so can many a kid. But I would just recreate sessions as I got older, and as I got more confident, I would recreate them even more. Because when you're young, I think you feel a bit embarrassed. I did at the time, to go and do your own stuff too much. You can be ridiculed a bit. When I was in the West Ham Academy, I look at him, he's like a goody two shoes. You're going out doing more training. But I always used to recreate, and if I missed shots at the weekend or in a game, I would recreate that in the week, and I'd work about moving the ball quickly and getting it out of my feet and hitting all different sorts of shots and developing. And then come the weekend, you can get hold of them, or you can miss hit one that might go in. It's just like, you make yourself lucky at the weekend by what you do for the week.
So as a kid, did you have an amazing shot?
A good shot.
Yeah, the night you had a lovely strike.
Yeah, I had a good shot.
It was a good strike.
Yeah, I was a good shot. I'll tell you what I didn't have. I didn't have a left foot strike. And as I got to sort of the academy, the youth team age, I started working on my left foot loads, and it got much better, to the point where, because I actually felt like I needed something, because I wasn't a trickster, I needed to at least have the idea that I could go both ways on someone. And so if someone knows you're always going to shift it onto your right, and you're not that quick, you haven't got that much. I didn't really have that sort of step over, body swerve, get away from someone always. Once I could take it on my left and get shots away, and I scored a fair few goals with my left foot in the end, by having, and actually you know that you can have someone with the fear that you can go that way, which can get you back on your right foot anyway.
There's lots of stories, Frank, and Dad obviously spoke about it when he was your manager at West Ham, that you'd always go and do your extra work. You have your spikes and you'd go and do finishing always on your own. How much of that is true, and how much should people understand that's what made you the player you are?
Yeah, it is true. It is true. And again, I feel like I'm saying similar stuff, but I was clearly not like the fastest player. I think my dad had lived the same life. He'd worn spikes as a kid and as a player, actually, right through his career, I think. And so he sort of used to push me to wear spikes, running spikes in the garden, do sprints. And then I used to take him to West Ham and hide them, go out and do them in the afternoon. Obviously got clocked a bit doing it. Took him to Chelsea when I first got there, which the players couldn't believe, because it was almost a bit more of a snobby squad, because they were like World Cup winners there. West Ham hadn't been there. And they were all like, you're going, just signed for 11 million quid. And you got to go and do spikes over the back. It was like a little bit. I felt funny about it. So probably did it for about a year at Chelsea, and then bombed it out. But I did all that stuff, a lot of it.
But was that what made you needed that though? It made you tick almost.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I loved it. No one loves going over in a cold afternoon and doing extra, spikes and all those things. It's not necessarily something you love, but I definitely loved the idea of what it would give me.
What age did your dad get you to start using spikes?
Really young. I'd probably say about 10 years of age.
10 years of age.
Yeah, 9, 10 years of age.
Can you buy spikes on Amazon for 2-year-olds, do you know? Can order some for Rafa quickly.
You can get some sneakers.
Skechers.
Skechers, that's it.
You've got it in.
Paul, you were looking to get Freddie to do some athletics work, weren't you?
Yeah. I just think you get brainwashed. Like you're watching training, everybody's quick, everybody's strong, and Freddie's a different kind of player. And I think, right, I need to get him quicker and all that. And it's like, it's such a hard one. It's the heads or tails. Do you know what I mean? Because at the same time, he's a different kind of player, And yeah, it is a hard one. I think that is so in you what Frank's doing. I've so underestimated. I know his dad, but you to be that mentally strong, to go for £11 million, going to Chelsea, one of the big clubs, and still go, you know what, I'm going to go and run. That's just unique. It's extreme. Not extreme, but I mean, that's just one in a million. Do you know what I mean? Or we could sit here and interview another, 10,000 footballers, and they wouldn't even have that thought in their head. Yeah. I wouldn't. I didn't. I don't think Jamie did.
I'm going to put. I did.
Well, why didn't it work then? No,
no, I did. I had that work ethic.
Yeah,
I used to do it, and I think Frank's dad was the same. My dad was the same. My dad did it from a point of view, I don't think, because he did it as much, whereas Frank Senior did it. So he's probably saying, "I know what it takes, and I know you got to do the extra work." So that I think.
Yeah, but if you see players now, they get a big, massive 5-year contract, and it's like, switch off.
Yeah.
We've seen it a million times. But to go and get to a club and go, you know what? This is what got me here. I'm going to keep on doing the same things that got me here. When other people get a new contract and they go, well, I've done what I need to do now. It's honestly, it's so underestimated. Like, I'm blown away listening to it because, to say that, to go to Chelsea and then still do it for another year is just.
But it was Merce. When I signed for Liverpool as a 17-year-old, and not to the, when Frank was 11 million, but there were certain pressures. And I'd had an environment with my dad at Bournemouth where after training, we'd all stay behind, me and a couple of the other lads, and we'd practice our shooting, passing. So we got to Liverpool, and in those days, you used to get on a bus and from Anfield to Melwood, and then you come back in the same kit, and then everyone would just go home. And I was like, God, and I wasn't in the first team. And I was like, this isn't working for me. I need to do more. I want to just keep practicing my shooting. So I remember sat at the coaches, and there was a guy called Ronnie Moran, who was a fantastic coach, lovely guy, tough as they come. And I said, look, Ronnie, can I go back and do some training? What do you mean, son? He said, you've done enough. I went, no, I want to do my bits. And he was like, well, no one really does it. And I was like, well, can I take a bag of balls? So I used to get my bag of balls and I'd go back to the training ground. And like Frank said, I used to get a load of stick off the other lads. They used to look at me and go, look at him, the arse licker. What are you trying to get? I said, no, listen, you do you and I do me. Yeah. And all of a sudden, then someone else would come. Then you get 2, then you get 3 people doing it. And then all of a sudden, then you create an environment of a culture of success. And that's sometimes what it takes. And I think that's a really amazing thing what Frank says, because if you don't listen to this as a young player, and hopefully there's young players, academy players that are in their car with their dad that are 14, 15 that want to be a footballer, that think they want to be a footballer, but they think they want to football. That's the difference. How much do you want to be? How much do you want to do? How much do you want to sacrifice? How much do you want to be like a Frank Lampard that's going to go for runs and do the other bits that make the difference and not worry about what anyone else thinks of you? And that's what it takes.
When it was towards the end of my career, when I was at England, David Beckham got into the team and he was playing. We used to wait for him. We used to get on the coach to go back to the hotel, and he'd be doing free kicks for 30 minutes. People think, oh, he's a good free kick taker. He's a good free kick taker because he just kept on practicing and practicing, and everybody's on the coach waiting, and he just bang, bang, bang. And it's hard work. Hard work gets you gives you every chance. This is why I always say to people, don't let it be that you didn't work hard enough. Yeah. Don't get to that stage. Even when I was manager at Walsall, I used to play. Don't get to this stage where you finish and you think, could have done more, I know.
Well, that's the question, Merce, and this is something that I get asked, Frank, and you're going to get it with Freddie. So you're going to stand on the sidelines as you get older, and every parent's going to be like, "Well, it's Frank Lampard there." I'm going to ask him the question: what does it take to make a footballer? And the truth is, I can't come up with a better answer than work hard.
Exactly.
Practice.
But you know,
do you not agree?
I do, and I've been caught in that a lot as well. And you feel like you've almost like not given them enough when you say it. They want to go, well, go on, no, there's another magic potion that's not as hard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it is. And also, like, now you balance it, because how old's your boy or your daughter? They go, well, they're 5. Well, you know what? Hard work, but enjoy the game. The hard work will come as you go through it. But the reality is, if the big question is, I want them to be a player, it is hard work. It's the same thing we're talking about: practice and work smart. Because also you got to get the right idea of what you do need. Like if it is agility, like you're talking about, which was my thing, then focus on that. You know what I mean? And that's when I think you've got to get the balance of what your coaches are going to give you as opposed to what your parents will. Because sometimes you've got to listen to the coach because they're trained to give you that advice, and they might see something in your game that a parent doesn't quite see because they're just comparing you to another kid who they think's getting in front of you or something. It might not be the same.
Can I ask Merce a question?
Go on.
Because I listened back to our last podcast, and you said something that for the next couple of days I thought about it a lot. And you spoke about Freddie, and you were like, Freddie's only going to be this player. He's only going to get it, and he's only going to give it. And that actually bothered me, because I think that if you believe that, that's all you're ever going to be. Like Frank was I think he's a good example. Frank was a good young player, but he turned himself into the best goal scoring midfield player we've ever seen. I don't care. There will never be anyone that gets his number.
I agree with that.
So why do you not think that it's important for Freddie to have different facets to his game?
In that way, when I say get and give, Man City are the greatest team in the world, the greatest team. Mm-hmm. There's one player that has to play in that team, and if he doesn't play, that team ain't clicking, and that's Rodri. Do you know what I mean? He gives and goes. Paul Scholes give and go. He could pass the ball, but it was give and go. Freddie plays, he's got to play a certain way. I was that kind, I run with a ball, but I could find a pass. Certain players knit together, and I think Freddie's not going to get the ball and beat 4 players. I mean, there's kids at Chelsea. I mean, they go past people like they got feet like Freddie.
They can go past one.
They can't put. Oh yeah, no short dribbles. Yeah, I'm not talking about. Of course, you have to go past people. You have to go past people. But what I'm saying is, give and go. Make sure you're quick. Make sure you're sharp. He's got to be quick up here. Do you know what I mean? Where he gets the ball and he goes bang and he moves it quickly. That's what I see him. That's the kind of player I see him as. That kind of player where. Yeah, maybe like, without put push, but like a Paul Scholes in a way, not like, that kind of player where he's not electric, but you can't get near him. Do you know what I mean? He's always going to be one step ahead where they flick it round the corner and they go again and they get it back. He ain't going to get, I don't want it, I hate this thing where I hear coaches go, right, your thing now is to stay on the ball. No, why? Why? What? Just to keep on losing the ball, but you're staying on it? What? That's just killing the kid. That's killing the kid. Certain players you go right, bang, you stay play what you're good at. So, and that's why I asked Frank about position wise. Was he always a midfield player? Because Freddie played up front last week. Freddie ain't going to be a centre forward. It was just a waste of 20 minutes in his life. It was like he stayed up front, never played up there. So if you're not a centre forward, what are you going to learn in 20 minutes of football?
Yeah, but he is 9 years old or 8. Yeah,
I don't care if he's 9, 10 or 27. You learn the game now, in my opinion. I think we get this thing of like, they're only 9. Just wait till they're 15, 16. You don't get to 15, 16. If you don't put in the work now, you don't get to 15, 16. You've got to, there's millions of kids. There's not like just 16 kids at Chelsea or 12 or 15 at Arsenal. They're all over the country. You have to start now, because what will happen if you're not doing it now? Chelsea will just go and get someone from Brighton at 12 or Southampton if they're better than you. So you got to start now. And I got to work on things with Freddie that he's good at. And then when he's mastered that and he's really good at that, and then we'll go, right, now we'll go and move on to that. Yeah. I think at the moment in football, I find the academy football, it's like, you've got to be brilliant at 15 things or not brilliant at 15 things, all right at 15. They're not going to get you anywhere. Being all right won't get you anywhere. Won't get you anywhere. You're all right. I've played with you. You're all right. What? Not a footballer, are you? Do you know what I mean? You're all right. And that's what I mean. So what I say to Freddie, right, get it, give it, pass it, move. Then we'll move on to something else.
No, sorry, can I just say, when you said stay on the ball there before, Are you talking about at Freddie's age that now the coaches are trying to say just stay on it?
Yeah, they say to kids. They say to kids like just stay on it. Just stay on it as long as you can.
Like we're seeing now in the Premier League and in top level football where centre halves have put their foot on the ball. You're talking about
no, I mean dribble.
Stay on it and
dribble with the ball.
The concept is that children learn through touches of the ball.
Right.
So the idea is just get them learning through touching it.
But rather than move it quickly as such.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a phrase.
No, they have a thing. They have a thing in football that it's like, go and do what you want, dribble, stay on the ball as long as you want, and at 12 we'll learn you how to pass the ball.
Gotcha.
Which I'm like blown away with.
Right.
I'm blown away because I don't see how you're getting pictures. You know, you're getting pictures from a young age, in my opinion, like your dad did with you, and he's going, right, don't get beat on that. Or football's all about pictures. You know, you watch every Premier League game, but they say to you, like, stay on the ball. And I'm seeing kids stay on the ball because that's what their performance thing is, and they're losing it. And I'm thinking, what are you learning?
I mean,
it's just my opinion.
I see what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? It's just opinions. It's
so I still.
But Fred is not. Sorry, but Fred is not a dribbler.
Right.
And I what Jamie said the other week when we was on, and it's true. If he was a dribbler, I'd be going, keep on roasting him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the problem is, and the people don't understand is, it's all right now because you're going past people that have got no interest in defending. When you get, and I know because we played the game, is when I get to 17, 18, 19, I'm coming up against people who just want to defend. They don't care about anything else. They just want to defend. They work out what you're good at, what you're bad at. Then that's when you've got to move the ball quickly.
I'm just going to interrupt the podcast for 30 seconds to tell you about We Make Footballers. We Make Footballers are the largest football coaching provider to children aged 4 to 12 in the UK, operating across 200 facilities. We focus on developing the individual, working on the technical and physical components of the game, and it's had amazing results, with hundreds of our ex-players joining professional academies and 4 of our ex-players currently playing in the Premier League. Our program is built around small-sided play using indoor and outdoor facilities. Visit our website, WeMakeFootballers.com, to see if we have a training facility in your area. Taking it back for when you were like 5, 6 years old, do you think scouts now would scout a Frank Lampard?
Yeah, I would say so. I would reckon I would have shown enough in terms of my sort of talent or whatever it was, the level at that age, and my football awareness. I'd like to think so. I think it's quite hard to compare though.
Like, what would that have looked like? Would your shot have been shining?
Yeah,
okay.
As Jamie said, I probably could always catch hold of it and could always have a good shot. I think I would have been a decent awareness as a midfield player to move the ball.
Yeah.
Probably would look at me, and I know this because I've spoken as I've got, even when I was a bit older, where people go, can he get around the pitch enough? Would have been a question mark.
Right.
Which probably, to be fair now, with how athletic I see the academies now, would have been more of a problem. I think the game's moving further in that direction in terms of athleticism. I don't know whether that's now we're coaching young kids better, they're getting that sort of agility work that maybe wasn't so well known in our day. Because I remember when I moved to Chelsea, and actually, and Sven said it to me once with England, because I probably in my early England days lacked a bit of the agility that I probably worked on and got better at. But it was like, what do you do at training? And I actually said, well, I do sprints, wear spikes, or I do this. I love doing practical stuff with a ball, turn quickly, get a shot away. He went, do you do much quick feet stuff? And I was like, no, not really. I don't really do that. And as I then started to be affected by other coaches and get another idea, I started to do more quick feet stuff, which maybe give me another edge. Now, I see videos of my mates' boys that are 7 years old doing quick feet with individual coaches or at academies. So it's moved on a long way. So probably I would have been, it's like saying, would the tennis player from 70 years ago be able to play against, Federer, but they've got better rackets, they're better trained, but the talent levels are always there. It's just changed regarding what they've got around them to get the most out of it. So my answer probably would be, I think I would get scouted.
Yeah, people say about fitness, and they say, oh, the game, the one thing I hear, because you play now, the fitness and all that, fitness has not changed that much in a way where Sebastian Coe and Steve Ovett are still some of the quickest 815-metre runners in the world of athletics, and that was 30 years ago. Do you know what I mean? It's like when Frank just said that. If it's moved on that quick, I never see anybody going to do what Frank's done again, getting 20 goals from midfield, going the way he played. So I don't. Is it that fitness changed, or just the tactics of the game's changed, and we've become more? We're sitting with a holding midfield player now, and sometimes maybe 2 holding midfield players. Where years ago, would that have been a case where if you're making runs forward, it don't matter if you lose your man, because you've still got the number 6 waiting to pick you up. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's right what Jamie said the other week is the game's changing. You don't know what the game's going to look like in another 15 years' time. But at the moment, I find the first tick the box now is an athlete. And then we'll go from there. One of the best players I ever played with was Teddy Sheringham. If you're talking about pictures in your head and brain-wise, you'd be sitting here now going, would he play today? No. I don't know. And that's the thing. I look at it, I think now it's like, if you're quick and you're strong and you're an athlete, bang, and then we'll go from there and we'll try and make you pass the ball and we'll try and make you do this. Instead of before, it was like, you had to be able to pass the ball or do something, and then we'll teach you how to be quick.
Well, you were the first Chelsea manager to really give young players a chance, Frank, in that academy.
100%.
When you look at the academy system for what it is and in your time as management, what do you like about it and what do you dislike about it?
The Chelsea Academy?
Or any academies?
I suppose I know that. Yeah, I suppose I know that Chelsea Academy most because I think Neil Bath and Jim Fraser and what they've done there, the Academy obviously well. Is they've brought through what I see, because I've worked with a few, you say, good kids generally have a good idea, so they've given them a well-rounded idea on life and the game, and good players. So most of those ones that have come through, I was lucky enough to work with because I did give them a chance, but we had the transfer ban, so it was kind of like, it was timing work for me. But they also then had to get ahead of players in front of them who were still there. Mason to get in front of Ross Barkley, Tammy ahead of Giroud or whatever. So credit to themselves. But I think the academy has produced really good kids, and that's the work. A lot of those boys have been there since they were 8 years of age. So they had a great tactical understanding. They had a great feeling for the club. And so when you have a young player come through like that, it's just a win-win all over the place. They breathe energy into the squad. The fans absolutely relate to them straight away, and the players are desperate to get that step into the first team because they're already feeling the club. It doesn't matter whether they were a Tottenham fan when they were a kid. They're now Chelsea. They've been there since they're 8. So I can't speak highly enough of the work that was done there. The thing that broke down, that was a problem I think before in terms of kids not getting a chance, was either the manager had no interest because they got to keep their job. And they don't want to try a kid out because it takes too long. It's too dangerous for them. And then the communication of some of the managers, that whether they're going to use them or not, we're not that bothered about it. Now, I was probably a bit different. My staff were all from the academy. I understood the academy, so our eyes were already there to speak. Who are the good ones? Bring them over. We need them over. What can they do? And I don't think all managers have done that. So it was a bit of a timing thing for me as well. But I think the academy have produced great kids. I think they were ahead of the game. I think now there's a lot more teams that there's a lot more challenging them in terms of academies, but in terms of picking the best kids out. So that sort of levelled out a little bit, and maybe not an issue for Chelsea, but they probably had a good run of it where they could really get those players and get them in and do their work with them. And now those kids could be going elsewhere. And
do you think, Frank, it all depends how the first team are doing by players' choices? Do you know what I mean? Even at 8 years of age or 9. If you're a kid now and you're 7 or 8 and you're just going to get signed by Chelsea for to move on, do you think it's important? Do you think parents are looking and going, Arsenal are doing well, Chelsea are not doing that well? Do you think that makes a difference in?
Well, I'm sure. I think right now, if you're living in the Northwest, you're looking at Liverpool going, look at the young players coming through there. I'll put my kid there. Makes a big thing. When Frank was the manager and all those players were coming through, I'm sure that had a massive effect on.
But now, would you be sitting there if your kid was 8? Are you going to Chelsea or Arsenal? Because Arsenal are flying, but your kid's still your kid's still at least 10 years away from playing in the first team.
I think that's where you got to be smart.
Yeah.
Well, one question that came up last time we did the podcast, and it was something that I certainly felt and watching a lot of youth kids, is when, barring 1 or 2 that are just like geniuses at 8 or 9, you would be a great example of someone that if you would have judged you at 13, 14 and said, right, this young man is going to go on and become the greatest goal-scoring midfield player this country's ever produced, you probably wouldn't have believed it. And I hope you take that the right way. So do you think you need to really, sometimes have a long-term view on players?
Absolutely. And there are too many examples of that, of players that like Declan Rice now at Arsenal, was at Chelsea, and say didn't make the grade there for whatever reason in that period of his growing up, moved on and now has for his own credit, having an amazing career. But yeah, I do think that I've done it myself as a coach. You can judge a young player by either watching them in a youth team game or bring them over to train with you in 2-3 sessions. And you can probably go, no, I'm not sure about him. It might be how he trains, what he looks like on the pitch, his talent, what he shows, or even the kid. And I've sometimes, and the mistake I made in my early days of coaching was probably judging the person and the player in different examples and going, I'm sure about them. And then you realise it comes back round, actually, no, they're a good kid, a bit shy or whatever, they need to develop a little bit. They've got this issue going on at home, he's from this background. And also the talent. I've had some players that I go, I'm not sure about them. And then 1 or 2, 3 years later, they prove you wrong, and I think that's a learning curve for me because I've not really had I went through an academy. It was a long time ago now. I've coached, went straight into sort of first team football. I don't do the day-to-day work, so I would definitely rely much more on a word of someone who's worked in the academy to go, no, this kid, like Reece James is a good example. I think I didn't live this, but Reece, when he was at a certain age, wasn't developed, didn't look physically maybe like he was going to be what he is now, which I think when he's fit, one of the best right backs in the world.
Yeah.
But at that point, I think there were a time when they're going, we're struggling a little bit and we weren't sure about him, and this one was ahead of him. Now the one that's ahead of him is nowhere to be seen, and Reece James is that player. So I think you'll be very careful to judge. You've got to look at it as a big picture thing, and as Mercer said, that's not easy because the minute you have a bad year, someone else comes in, you put by the wayside. So I think that's when you have real good academies and real good, management of it.
And your mindset, I want to take you back, Frank. There's a famous video when Dad talks about you and he says about you will go right to the very top. I often look at that video, it pops up on my social media, and I can see your face and you don't want to be there. You're put in a horrible position, but in your inner voice, as Sean says, were you thinking to yourself, absolutely, I'm going right to the top?
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I was embarrassed. I was at fans forum and I hadn't been asked a question all night. No one cared about me. It was like Peter Story. It was the sporting director, whatever it had been, technical director. Tom was getting hammered for whatever, recruitment, ticket prices. I sat on the end and not a word, and then this bloke wants to have a pop at me, and I didn't. No, I didn't. I wasn't that type, Jem. I was. Again, it probably goes back to having a fear of not making it. All from and being told how hard it is to make it, and I'm sitting there and was sort of getting a step into the first team. I didn't feel madly comfortable when I went in the first team. I wasn't a Wayne Rooney or just go, yeah, here I am. It was like a baby step, played all right, but realised that the level was quite big. So I wasn't sitting there going, yeah, no problem, I'm going to prove him wrong. No, the opposite, I'd say.
How old was you, Frank, when you sort of worked out and you went to make it? I need to be a box-to-box, score goals. And not someone, no disrespect, but be a Jamie who's going to stand there and spray balls around all over the pitch and have that vision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, probably about 15, 16, I would say. Oh. Just as I got in the West Ham youth team. And then the stakes rose from, Sunday league football, or whatever it had been, and left school and going to there. And you realise that this is now a professional job. And what do I want to do and what do I need to do to do it? And that's when I really realised it. I didn't want to be an average midfield player. And that's not to say Jamie's not average. You were very good at doing things that were much more from the middle of the park, find those passes. It wasn't naturally my game. I think I got better at that. But at the same time, the thing I did feel like I could do better was to arrive. And I had periods where I probably did get a bit cosy in the middle of the park and just sort of sit there. And that's when I was lucky that I'd had probably my dad give me the, wait, got to get running.
Get in the box.
Get in the box, son. Like, it's not good enough.
I can, what's funny is you say that, I can visual, get in the box. He used to shout, didn't he?
Yeah.
Get in the box. It's like, you know what? It's money. It's money.
Yeah. I say that to the kids, the young players I've coached at Chelsea and Everton, and it's still a frustration of mine. And Jude Bellingham now does it. We had a conversation about it the other day, didn't you? I'm watching Jude Bellingham now arriving and getting in the box. Conor Gallagher does it a bit for Chelsea. He's constantly arriving, and your ratio means that you arrive 10, 15 times, you get 1 or 2 chances, and people say you're lucky. But it's a frustration of mine. I think, and I don't know whether we're still there, but modern midfield players became much more about, being involved in build and short passes and that. And I'm a bit like, if you've got the capacity to get in there and the want and the drive, get in there and get yourself. On a selfish note, it's the money. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean the money. It's the one that will make you. Of course. We've got an ego. I want to be known as that.
Yeah.
And if that's what I'm good at and I can do it, I might do it.
I say
Was
that
there
to
any
Bo now.
coach? Sorry, Jack. Was there any coach that used to say, "Well, wait there a minute, don't keep on going, Frank.
Yeah.
Don't keep on going. I
Yeah,
know where you're
my
going
dad.
all the time."
It wasn't your dad. It would be well, towards the back end of my Chelsea career, it would be Rafa Benitez.
Oh, it's a shock.
It was- we didn't get on great. No, it was the system at the time. He came in, VS Boas a bit, where we started to play with two, and I was one of the 2 6s. They were starting to bring in the Matters. De Bruyne was there a short period of time, but we had a lot of number 10s. As such. Hazard came in and played there occasionally in my latter years, so they did them. But to be fair, by that time I was probably ready to go. All right,
Yeah.
I can play there, and I can time a run now and again. If it's a game where we're at home and we're confident, I know I can arrive a lot more. If we go play Bayern Munich in the Champions League final, it was me and Obi. Spent 120 minutes just doing that, just trying to cover space. So you balanced it out. But no, in my younger, Capello with England, because we were in a 2, we had that rigid 4-4-2,
Yeah.
and it was you can't really go.
And how did you feel that? Because like you're sitting there, you must think, well, I'm one of the best in the world at this, at doing what I do, and then I'm getting asked to like sit back now, and you're you're taking a lot of your game away.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of your game, of course you are. You know, as you say, we're sitting here. I'm not saying it because you're sitting. No one's ever going to do what you do again.
Oh, well, do you
No
know
one.
what, Merce? I say to
You know, it's like saying to me, right, you're playing. Don't try and hit that pass. Don't try and hit that pass.
Yeah.
Take
I
it,
just want you to
cut
play
your legs
safe
off.
now.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
But the thing is, so Bo's 15 and he wants to be a midfield player. So when I'm trying to find the analogy to him of like, don't just stay in there and play and pass. You got to get forward, get in the box. I said, and I always say, like Frank Lampard, not because he's my cousin, just say that it's hard to think of anybody else that could do what you could do.
I just try and think of anybody. I can't think of anybody.
So when I
else.
sat at Bo, just getting it, and he sort of says to me, like, you know, and I said, watch videos of him, and he said, yeah, he said, just had a great knack, and I said, what is the secret? And I'm like, you just got to gamble sometimes, you know what? And if you don't run in there, you won't score, because every now and again one will bobble to you, and you know, a few ricochets or clean strikes. Just get onto that edge of the box. I always think, and I don't know if I visualise your goals. It's that one, and the penalty spot always felt like an area for you to attack. That was like it was your moment. Like, and I was trying to play against you, and a couple of times I think you scored. We scored a few goals when I played against you, but certainly one at Chelsea when I was marking you, and all game I thought I'd done all right, and then I'm starting to get a bit tired, and I'm getting older, and then you just went in. I thought I'll let you go one this last time, and you just got in behind me and just side-footed it in. But that was your domain in that area.
Yeah, it was. But I sort of, I was fortunate in a way that I played in a system up until those latter years at Chelsea where we were 4-3-3 a lot. So I did have the protective 6, and I was probably the up and down 8, and the other 8 was a bit of a balance to me. But I do think I learned the simplicity of an idea, and I think most things in football, things are simple things done well and repeated, and even the idea. And as a left-sided 8, which I generally was, my mantra was when we're building low or near the halfway line, I like to come out. I like to be a bit deeper. Now we talk about false fullback. I wasn't quite that, but and luckily I had Ashley Cole just going, getting on his bike, and Malouda was coming off the line. So that's where I want to be. As we moved up the pitch, if the ball was on my side of the pitch, on that left side, I would stay connected to that. If the ball was on the other side of the pitch, I'm ready to go. And that was basically my basic mantra of it. Like, I knew that if the ball switched out to that side, I'm going to be in and around, close enough to the box to get in there. And then the last point of that, which I think is good for young midfield players, is that once you make that run, that action might not be the one that gets you the goal, be the next one or the next one. So don't just stand in there. You got to make. Then you got to move, and then you got to come back out, but to go back in there again, and then you're up there, and that's when your numbers start coming up because you're actually physically up there in the first.
You've got to expect, like with you though, you went in to expect to score.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of Conor Gallagher. I like Conor, but at the cup final the other week, I felt like he was just getting in the box because I'm told to get in the box. So you know the one when he hits the post?
Yeah.
I think he just turns up in the box. He doesn't go in the box and go, you know what, this is going to come to me. And I'm putting, it was like, and he sort of dragged his shot and he hit the post. The thing with Frank was Frank went in expecting to score. You know, you went in expecting to score. I think a lot of people go in because they're told to go in, and it's like, I'll make that run.
He's done all that work in the background, so like he's got that shot, like you know in your mind that you're getting in that position and you're going to get that finish. And like it's all the hours and hours and hours. Like I'm so interested in the root of why things happen. And there was a conversation that would happen earlier, and I didn't want to interrupt it, but I'm thinking to myself, all right, we're talking about the result here, but it's the practice hours that are creating the result. What has created that much practice? And then I'm going, well, his dad and that relationship they had and the inner voice, and that is something that's driving you to practice that much. So then we then take it into that amount of goals, and it's 303 goals in 1,000 games roughly, 211 goals for Chelsea. But yeah, like for parents to understand, well, all right, and maybe they're not going to replicate that, but yeah, how can they create that type of mindset for their child and that environment? You don't think it's possible, Paul?
Oh, well, of course it's possible, but you got to want it. You know, Frank Senior's not telling Frank when he goes to Chelsea for £11 million to go around the back and keep on doing sprints. Do you know what I mean? You have to, you know, the parent will give you so much, and they'll give you so much, and they'll embed, and I think at an early age. But when you get to a certain age, and I find it with kids now, do they really want to play football? Or is it their parent who wants them to play?
Yeah.
When they get to a certain age, it's going to be the player himself. And that's when you can put everything into them, but you have to want it yourself. You have to want it. Your parent can only take you so far. Of course they can, and they give you so much. But when you get to a certain age, at 14, 15, 16, 17, when you can make the right decisions and, you know, all these hurdles of whatever it may be, get your mates going out and things like, people go, oh my God, look at the dream you lived. I never got to Marbella and all them places. I never went Ibiza. I mean, I was so disciplined when I was a kid.
You was a real goody-goody, wouldn't you?
I was, until I made it, and then it went a bit skoo-whip. But I got the right... What I did, I made sure I got to where I worked hard to get where I got. People think, oh, luxury player. My God, I worked harder than anybody when I was a kid.
So it's interesting when you talk about, because I always, you know, when I think about Bo, so Bo's now 15, and this is the first time, and it's hard, because I don't want to certainly put any pressure on him. I'm starting to look, and I'm talking these weeks, right? So we might have a conversation in another year and it might have changed. Well, I'm looking and thinking, you're actually starting to get this a little bit. I'm now seeing like work rate, and I'm seeing somebody that really cares, and after games we're talking about it. What do you think about this, Dad? Whereas when I was 8, 9, 10 and I'd take him to like Chelsea Academy, and had a long day at school, and I should look at him and think, this ain't for you today, little man, is it? And I'd still take him, and I'd watch him, and he didn't maybe train as well, and he'd walk around a little bit, and I used to be like, afterwards, oh, you got to do better, you got to work harder. And I used to think, I didn't like myself for the way I was with him. You know, even now I feel uncomfortable talking about that because it wasn't in the right place, you know. And now he's starting to get it, and I'm thinking, well, is that because I drilled him that much when he was young, or is it because he's now just doing it because he wants to do it? You know, it's such a fine line, as you know, even the youth coach, as a dad, judging how to push your kids and when is it actually too much, and when sometimes when you're going to take them, and I don't care if it's at academy at Liverpool or Chelsea, and you look at them and they're tired, and you know they're not going to get hardly anything out of that session. When you just go, you know what, mate, let's go home. This ain't, you know, you're tired today. Maybe let's go back and we'll do something else, or maybe we'll just, you know, watch a film together, or let's go and have a little bit of fish and chips or something. Because some parents might go, oh, you've got to take your kid. You've got to push them. But the truth is that one session isn't going to make a lot of difference in a bigger scheme of things, because I'm seeing, like, as I say, with Bo, that, and I've said to Frank a lot of times, I've even got Frank to speak to him on the phone, and I could sit like, Frank, just have a chat with him about how hard he's working. And I'm listening to Frank, and I want to go out in the garden and play. But Bo's looking and going, yeah, all right, yeah, you know, I'll take it if I wanted, but there's only so much you can do with your kids, and you've got to judge it each time. Do you get that, Frank, what I'm trying to say?
I completely get it.
You're unique in that response, in that respect.
Yeah, and that's what but I was so hungry, to go back to Mercy's point, as a kid, as a player, I was so hungry to score goals and so hungry to do well, because that's what, you know, I knew would be my sort of big selling point, if you want to call it that I would always be so obsessed with it, and I would create practices of finishing in the box. So as you say, I'm ready for when it drops on my left foot out and nowhere, bang, you can.
But what age are we talking about there? You're talking
about from probably my teens in a different way. It was agility and stamina and arriving to finish, all the way through my career. And I know what you're saying. You're coming back a bit younger than that now, down to that. And I agree with that. I do think we're in a different culture, because I've got even my daughters are older now. And I'm not throwing them under the bus here. I think what the environment is around them, I do think we have to get back to work ethic and what you have to do, and you can only succeed by absolute application and that. And now, how you do that is one thing. I agree with you. Like, not 365 days a year is just you're gonna flog them, and you might have to flog your relationship a little bit, I guess. But I think sometimes now I do think that people see everything on their phone, see all of these people talking about how they've been successful, but don't realise what the root of it is and the work. And then it can be a bit of entitlement. It will just come to me, whatever. It doesn't come to you unless you go and grab it. Slightly different to your point on Bo, I think, because it's that younger thing. And you're talking about personal relationships with your kids as well.
But the thing is with my son is that it didn't matter what I'd have done with him. You know, it's the same with Charlie. Charlie's a rugby player, and I used to get him out in the garden. I'd go and get I'd pay for 1v1 sessions. And I'd be looking at him, he's falling over the ball. And I thought, what's the point of this? But he's a diamond. But you know what? When he got to come to rugby, he'd get the ball and he'd go past the cut. But that was his thing. So I couldn't, nature, nurture. I couldn't have turned I couldn't have turned Charlie into a footballer.
But I remember coaching the boys in the garden when they were like 6. I think I started working maybe with Charlie, doing some sessions when he was maybe 7. And then he had a good strike. But it looked to me that he'd spent a lot of time just practicing striking. Whereas like I was dealing with a lot of players, and we kind of touched on it earlier, where they're expected to have a lot, skills and like good movement and all that kind of thing. And Charlie wasn't quite that, but he
didn't want to do it, Sean.
Fair enough.
It was just like. But now I look back and it's
little Bo,
bullying really, because I'm paying for an hour and he's out there looking at me going, "Damn, I don't really want to do this, mate."
But Bo, I don't know if you remember him, but like I think maybe when he was like 3 years old or 4, like he would move through the hurdles and like the ladder that you had in the garden, and he would move so nicely, such natural coordination. And that he definitely had so much ability from a young age. I'm thinking, and I'm working with like so many of these type of kids that go on to then get signed at academies. The way that he would touch the ball, like was very graceful, very nice.
But you have to let them get there.
Loads of ability.
Yeah, but you have to let them get there in their own time. Is I think what I'm trying to say. And everybody will reach that point if they're going to be good enough. And that's why I asked the question to Frank, when is it, do you think you can actually tell? Because I'm trying to think back to Frank and watching him play. And we used to do analysis when you first got into the West Ham side, and we'd speak when Match of the Day was on. And I said, look, let's have a chat later on. We'd always talk after Match of the Day. I was, say, 22, something like that. Frank was 17, 18. And it would be so beneficial to do that. But Frank, before that, would have been like one of those where you weren't quite sure. But then once he found his strength, once he got his fitness and started to get that confidence that, yes, I can actually play, and you go and challenge yourself against good academy players, that's when you actually start to realise being the best under 8 is a complete waste of time.
No.
Of course it is. It's nonsense. Being the best under 8. No, who wants to be the best under 8?
The best under 8 if you don't end up fulfilling your potential and you don't end up making that.
I've seen so many. I remember England schoolboys. I got picked for one game for England schoolboys, and all the midfield players were like, they had hairy arms and hairy armpits, hairs on their legs. I was like, God, they're going to be unbelievable. This is England's future midfield. I never saw them again 2 years later. Frank was the same.
Yeah.
You didn't play England schoolboys, did you?
No, I didn't get into Lilleshall School of Excellence. I tried to get in there, and most of those players would be nowhere now as well. But it was the same physically. They were ahead of me. You talk about physical. If they get
you're a June birthday as well, which is not always easy as well.
Yeah, no, but they were. It was just a pecking order at the time. Like you said, there was no point in being the best unless you keep working to become the best when it really matters.
We play 2 different sports at the moment, though. Play 7-a-side at the moment. Play small pitches. Someone get the ball, they could beat 4 players and score a goal. When the pitches turn into 11v11, it's a completely different sport. A completely different sport. And it's about getting to that stage. You've got to get to 11 or 12 when it does open up to playing football, really, because it ain't football at the moment. It's 7-a-side, small goals. Do you know what I mean? Tight pitches.
But yeah, I mean, the players that you brought through at Chelsea, those youth players, the majority of them had all been at the club since they've been like 7 years old.
Yeah, so Mason, Reese, Fikayo, Tammy. Yeah, Billy came later. Billy came from Rangers, Billy Gilmore, Armando.
Do they play, though, Frank, if you're not there? Say Jose's the manager.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would have done it. I remember when we got beaten 4-0 my first game at Man United. We played all right for a period of the game, and they'd done us counter attack.
Remember it? Yeah, remember.
And Jose was on Sky, and Jose giving me a bit of jip, and it was a bit like these young boys are not gonna, they're not ready type conversation. So I don't know. I think Jose's smart. I think someone like Mason Mount. I don't think that what I did with Mason particularly, because I'd had him at Derby as well. I gave him the full feeling from the start of the season that he was my man. And now I recognise that, because I had a couple of managers, particularly Jose with me, that gave me a real confidence of like, you're my man, I'm with you, and that just made me grow. And I think Mason particularly, I gave that to. And as I say, Mason would have been against Ross Barkley, Kovacic, because Kante always plays when he's fit.
Yeah.
Jorginho was probably the sixth generally. And so it was against two top players, really, in a way. And I gave Mace, because I started him in the first game, started him in Leicester at home in the early games. So he had that feeling. Tammy and Giroud were like, but I also give Tammy the number 9 shirt. I'm not saying that I did this, but when you give people, young players, a confidence that you're going to go with them, and I don't think they necessarily would have got that elsewhere. And some of that was be my connection, having a real good understanding of them, and the transfer ban, definitely. But I gave them that. So yeah, Fikayo, Tomori wouldn't have done.
What about someone like, like Mason Mount, like as you say, like through the youth team, he'd have been amazing. I talked to Tim Sherwood. He said he used to watch the youth team play, and he was the go-to man. He was like, he dragged Chelsea through. Then he gets into the first team. You're like, you give him all that confidence. Do you think him going to Man United, has a couple of bad games, the manager ain't really putting his arm around him? I don't think so. I'm not sure. Do you think he finds it hard then? Do you think players then think, well, wait a minute, I had someone like you who puts my arm around, and probably a lot of the Chelsea coaches through his time, because he was a top player. Then he goes to Man United and the manager's not that warm.
Yeah, that's the challenge for him now. Yeah. I did. All the youth team coaches would have spoken highly of him. All these loans were great. Thomas Tuchel played him regularly and had a load of faith in him. And now he's gone and he's got a challenge. I think some of it is probably a tactical challenge of Bruno Fernandes and him ever being in the same team anyway. I think that was probably a question mark over the situation.
Well, especially if Casemiro is playing as the older.
Well, it's going to be tough, that one. But I do think Mason, knowing him well, he's got a bit of grit and something about him that will go, I'm going to show you, and he probably needs to get fully fit. And maybe it might be next season now, go for pre-season, whatever change happens in the summer. But I agree, it'll be a big challenge of him, but he's still a young enough boy.
No, I'm a big fan.
So here's a question for you, Frank, for young, say, for parents that got good young players, 15, 16 years of age, and they're getting offered big money by a Premier League club to sign, but knowing that in their heart of hearts, the pathway isn't there. Do you take the money and go to a club where you're going to take the risk, or do you maybe go, there's a smaller club, but there is a pathway for me to get into that first team as soon as possible? What do you think?
I think as a parent, you'd have to look at what the big picture is. So those basic details, the big money move, what academy is that? For big money move, I'm guessing is one of the top academies in the country. What sort of coaching am I going to get there? What will be the pathway in that sort of period where I might not get into the first team, like you say, because you're blocked by top players? Is it a loan? What is that? And then you weigh that up against the maybe the lesser club, which what's the coaching like? So it comes down to people a little bit. So if I'm sitting in front of Neil Bath, who I think you can tell I've got a lot of respect for, what is he going to say to you to give you the answers you want? And then you have to weigh both of those up. I probably, if it was my boy now, if it was Freddie in whatever 12, 13 years time, whatever more, a little bit having played, I would probably err on the bit of go and get playing as soon as you can. But I don't think it's as simple as that. And I've got to say, I've had a few conversations with parents when I've been managing at Chelsea and Everton. And sometimes the parents are getting it wrong. They're asking all these questions about pathways and, well, what will he be? What will he be next year? He's in the 8. I want him to play in the 20. His mate plays in the 21s and he's there. And you know what? And my answer is, you've got to be careful because you're trying to get these kids to sign normally. I want to go, don't worry about that. Worry about your boy playing, training, doing all the work that he's got to do, because his pathway will become itself. It might be a loan. It might be Jared Brentford. When I'm not talking about Jared, it went on loan, and before that he needed the loan. He's come back now. He's looking like he's probably going to go on at Everton well or get a move. But the parents sit there and go, tell us the pathway, as if I should be selling to them the pathway. Their boy has to perform. So whether he goes to that lesser club, and hopefully the pathway straight into them, it will only depend on whether that boy trains, because that won't be easy either. And if he goes to the better academy, as you're saying, you get your bit of dough at that point. Well, he better be ready to go out maybe on loan and apply himself every day and do all the right things to play. So it's a hard question. The responsibility will be on that player.
But he comes back.
One second, because I remember talking when Jude Bellingham was coming through, and you and I had a conversation about him. He was a great kid, this boy. We're trying to get him to Chelsea. I think he was 17 at the time. He said, we've had a conversation with him, we've sold the club to him. He said, but it's going to be hard because his parents are so bright. They know where they want him to go. And I just don't think that he can come to a club like Chelsea or Man United because he won't be getting in the first team. Whereas Dortmund could go, right, you're going to be in our first team at 17 no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, that's a case in point as well. Because you tried to sell him, you tried to get him to Chelsea.
Come to the training ground and we sat in the meeting room. We had a nice video. Chelsea had followed him for years. Jim Fraser had scouted him since he was a really young kid. And we did the biggest selling point, and I was in quite a good position at the time because I could go, well, look at Mason and look at Tammy, they're playing like this. That will happen for you. But they were very smart. Didn't say too much. Some parents can talk, a lot. They were just like listening. But I just got the feeling that he's going to go places. This boy, because he had the parents were really strong. We'd already sensed and smelt a little bit that he might take the Dortmund option anyway, talking to Man U, Man City, or whatever it was, and it was absolutely the right path for him. But again, if he'd have come to Chelsea, he'd still become a top player because he's doing all the right things. Do you know what I mean? It just would have looked a little bit different. But I think it was the smart journey for them. But for me, again, it comes back to the kid who goes, are you going to apply yourself? Are you going to show that you're going to make it? Because Jude Bellingham would have got in that Chelsea first team in the next year or two. You know what I mean? He would have done because of the ability of the boy. Maybe not everyone's got Jude Bellingham's ability. I think he's an absolute world-class talent, isn't he? So I think it's not an easy one. But again, I do come back to those experiences I had at Everton, particularly where I and the academy staff were asked, what are you going to give our son? And it's like, that's not really the point. The point is, what is this boy going to do to really make himself? And then he'll make his path or own it, make the path.
Yeah.
But it just shows from the age of 8 up all the way up to then, and you're talking about Braveheart, all comes down to hard work. Even like when you've got a big contract and you've got to go on loan to earn your stripes and playing in sort of a man's league, playing in League One and League Two, you've got to work hard. If you don't work hard, you'll come back and you won't be any nearer the first team.
On this subject around choosing your club, I mean, you said earlier you're with West Ham, Arsenal, Spurs. How did you choose to sign for West Ham?
Well, I was a West Ham fan,
right?
So that helped. I live 5-10 minutes from the training ground. That sort of helped, and obviously my dad had played there for so long, so probably that's probably an easy one in a sense for me. And actually, where Harry was the manager at the time, Chelsea's academy hadn't produced since the great era of the World Cup boys. It was known as an academy there, and it had gone dormant for a long time. And Harry was now come back in, not just to say it in front of Jamie. It's evident because history tells you that they were making a big push on these, giving attention to it. It was the days before money. It wasn't like we're going to give you £100,000 or give your family this. It was almost like, your deal might be around there, which was standard what it was. Outside a YTS contract, 30 quid a week or whatever. So that was going to be the same. But you had a feeling that West Ham would help you get an opportunity to get in the first team. And then it came true. And then that became a great conveyor belt because then Harry could sit and talk to Jermaine Defoe's parents and say, well, look at what Frank and Rio are doing. Michael Carrick's, Glenn Johnson's.
Joe Cole.
Joe Cole.
So just to clarify, so up until the age of under 16, you were able to train with multiple clubs?
Yeah. Before that, I think it was, as I left school was the point of having to make a decision. I did my GCSE, so I'd be 15, 16. And my dad had not committed because he knew the system. You didn't have to commit like you do now. He was like, don't commit to anyone, just get the benefit of training everywhere.
See, that's nuts. So like now we obviously the parents have to make decisions at under 8s. So you've both been through it.
Yeah,
you
we had to make
Chelsea.
ours under 14. So I signed for Tottenham when I was 14.
I signed for... I was at Watford at 12 and then at 14 I went to Arsenal.
Sorry, I meant for your boys though.
Oh, for my boys.
Yeah. Like you both took them to Chelsea.
Yeah.
It was out of Chelsea and Fulham. It was heads or tails. I'm not going to lie, it was heads or tails. But I don't mind making that. I don't mean make that decision, but now I'd rather just be at one club and you're not getting wired because everybody's different. There's so much. I think the one thing when you talk about how the game's changed and how quick they are and how fit they are and the one thing that's changed more than anything is the coaching. I think the coaching's gone to an absolute another level. I see it with the under 8s and 9s. We did the training I had when I was playing, but it was basic run of the mill stuff. If my kid was getting that now, I'd go, whoa, wait there a minute. I think that's the thing. I think the coaching now is such advanced at every level, in my opinion.
Agree.
Even though you get sometimes frustrated that Freddie plays up front.
Yeah, I mean that's just because there's just too many kids and whatever, and it ain't just about Freddie. But yeah, I mean sometimes I do sit there and I think that's lazy. I might be wrong. I might think, but you think, well, he either plays at the back or he plays in midfield. I don't know what you're going to learn in 20 minutes. Do you know, if someone said to me now, go and do a maths lesson for 20 minutes, well, I'm not really going to learn much, am I? Do you know what I mean? I need to keep on doing that for a long period of time. I can't go college for like 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Go college for 20 minutes and learn how to be a plumber? No chance. Do you know what I mean? I've got to go for years. And that's why I always say, keep on playing in that position. Like I asked Frank, midfield, keeps on playing in that position, get pictures, when to know. He ain't just running for the sake of running. You can't just keep on running down, like make a run and the centre half's waiting there, doing his nails, waiting for Frank. He's got to keep on waiting and waiting. And when he falls asleep or goes ball watching and his player starts falling asleep, bang, I go. And it just, you keep on going. In the end, that man who's marking you, there's nothing worse than chasing someone who hasn't got the ball. It's the worst feeling in the world. And it was the best at doing that. No one wanted to keep on chasing Frank.
So Freddie, your Freddie is playing. He's not running in the box. He's not doing what he should be doing. What sort of dad are you going to be? This is, by the way, such a hypothetical question because I know myself I'm never going to be that dad, and I've shouted a few times.
Yeah, no, I will shout a few times, but I'll definitely will, as I say, I would definitely try and be a bit more well-rounded than the old school that I grew up in, and maybe try and do the visuals, take a breath, talk after the game. Like, what are you seeing? Why are you not running and all that stuff, rather than just the impulsive shout from the sidelines. Once I've gone through that process, he can get the shout. Do you know what I mean? But I will try and be a bit more well-rounded about it. Because, again, I do think you do live and learn. Like I think we're all learning. We're talking about different coaching, different academy. I've certainly learned a lot in my career and a lot in my management career, actually, in dealing with people. Because I think the harsh voice, especially to a young player, is not always the best voice. It's like, explain why. And if I felt back to Mercy's point a little bit, if I felt it was a laziness that was stopping it, I'd get the ump with that.
Yeah,
I would. Why are you not running? I can't be bothered to type feeling. I'd be like, well, no, why you're not doing it. That's different. But if he's not understanding of it, or if it's not his strength, I wouldn't force the issue.
That's why that's such a great point, because coaches now, like I see academy football and I see a kid making a mistake once, twice, 3 times. Nobody says a word. You can't say anything to them now. You can't shout at them. No. My answer to that is, if they're lucky enough to one day make a footballer and they're playing at Anfield, Stamford Bridge, and they're giving the ball away in front of 40, 50,000 people, do you not think they're going to shout at them?
Yeah.
You've got to be resilient. You've got to be able to handle every single situation. And that's really what built Frank. When I'm listening to these conversations, and I love hearing it, there's a resilience that made Frank, perhaps when people maybe doubted him at 15, 16, getting into the first team at West Ham, but then he needed the confidence of someone like Mourinho to tell him, you're my man. That's what's rounded and made Frank the player that he is. So there's a little bit of everything that you need. And you have to sometimes have honesty with your kids, even if they don't want to hear it. They've got to, because if they don't, one day there's phone-ins, there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's TV, people analysing every single mistake. If you can't handle that, you have not got a chance of making a footballer.
What's Fred's mum like in terms of like strictness?
Good left foot.
No, in terms
Has Christine
of...
got him doing a bit?
Yeah, she does.
Oh, good.
She does. Yeah, no, she does. Yeah. What are you talking about in terms of
the balance? Like, so what I got from the Stephen Bartlett interview was that your dad was a certain way, and obviously so how he was, but then your mum gave you that balance. So have you had that discussion with Fred's mum? No,
it's really natural for us.
All right.
That we just are sort of who we are. We're very, we see it from the same angle, really. I'm not as hard as my dad would have been. I'm different to that. So I don't think you need a good cop, bad cop. We don't need that at all. And in fact, circumstances of Freddie's, where he was just nearly 3, I spent a year in Cheshire, living in Cheshire, managing Everton and managing Chelsea for a period. Like, there have been a lot of times where I've been away. So in those periods, he becomes a big mummy's boy. Like, you come back from Everton and like, I want to be with mummy all the time. Now I've had some period of time with him. He wants to be with me all the time. And we just strike that balance, really. And we do see things a lot in the same way. So we both try and be, not being, it's really hard, but not being your child's attack. You can't be best friends with your child. You've got to tell them, you know what I mean? And it's almost like being a manager. You've got to tell someone about making a mistake. You've got to tell him that he's got to eat his dinner, because at the minute he won't eat a thing. And I'll just give him chicken nuggets every day. At some stage, you've got to say, no, you've got to eat some vegetables. If you don't eat that, you're not having your dinner tonight. You know what I mean? In a minute, he cries his eyes out. But
in the last part of this episode, we've actually invited in a parent who's got a kid who's in Chelsea Academy,
Right.
and he's literally doing so well.
Right.
Incredible. And he's got so much talent, this boy. And I have a lot of conversations with his dad, Perry, and it's very, very interesting how he's developing him and conditioning his mindset. But it's things like how he makes his bed, how he does like burpees before he goes to sleep, like, you know, no fizzy drinks, like a lot of like discipline. But I think that comes across then in performances, because then I feel like if that is the way the kid is performing at home on a football pitch, they're going to be hardworking, they're going to be disciplined. Like, do you guys see that connection?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Freddie, I'm still picking up his pajamas every morning. I mean, I do that. But yeah, everybody's different in a way. I like that. I think the kid. I think the kid's special. I do think he's special. I think his parent is clued in, and he does. He works him hard. He has a hard work ethic. As I go, it don't matter if you make your bed, you do this, you do that, and do burpee. You have to work hard, and he has got a work ethic. He has got a work ethic. That is the main thing, and all the extra stuff. You know, as soon as Freddie turns around to me and goes, "Nah, not today." Not today. I won't bother going anymore. It won't. You know, it's not my. I was very fortunate. I had my career. You know, I'm not doing it through my eyes. You know, I'm not the one who wants to be the footballer now. It's up to Freddie if he wants to be the footballer. But this kid,
so
this kid's special.
that's almost like, but I know what you're saying. So if he turned around to you now, and all those times when I took Bo and I perhaps shouldn't because he wasn't that interested, whereas now I see that he is interested. So if I'd have said, I ain't going anymore, what would have happened then? I'd have that would have been a pointless exercise doing where I've got to today. So
he did get touches on the ball in those training sessions. When you pushed him, he developed. So now he's 15 and he wants it. He's got ability.
I know. What I'm trying to say is that you have to treat each case individually. You can't be Paul Merson. Like, we're trying to explain what's made Frank the player that he is, but that's a unique situation. So everybody that's listening to this will hopefully just take one or two things from it, and not saying that's the answer, because he was unique.
Yeah.
He was absolutely unique. I had a unique upbringing with my dad. Paul had situations or circumstances that made him the player. But every parent, you can't, you know, that for you, when you say that, if a parent took that, so my kid doesn't want to go today and he's 8, I'm not taking him anymore.
No, I don't mean like today, but if it got to a stage where it's like 20 times over a year, absolutely not.
But even if he's got ability and you go, okay, but he can always come back to it though.
Exactly, he can always come back to it. That's what I'm saying. It don't matter where you are, you know, and every parents, listen, it don't matter if you're an Cat A category, like your Chelseas, your Arsenals, your Liverpools, your Man Uniteds, or you're down at Cat 3. There's a saying, if you're good enough, you will get found. It don't matter where you are, you've got to be good enough. You know, people get into this thing, I'm in a Cat A. It don't matter where you are. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be. But if Freddie don't want, I'm not going to make someone do something they don't want to do. Do you know what I mean? I don't want. I won't do that. But like Jamie said, like Jamie brought Bo out. Now he's got that love back. He's got that love back. He'll get found again, 100%.
Yeah.
I know he will. I know, because he can play and he's a talent.
That's exactly
and
what
the thing,
happened.
it doesn't matter what. There's one thing you can all bottle up as a footballer: is confidence.
Yeah. I went to watch him
If you
play.
ain't got confidence,
No, you
chance.
can't play. So I watched the game. He must have been 11, and he played. And I looked at him, and I was like, "You're not enjoying this, mate." I said, "Listen, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to come out of this, because it's a fierce environment, academy football. It's like as tough as it comes." And I went, "I tell you what we're going to do, mate. We're going to go. Let's go and play grassroots. Let's go back to enjoying that football again, because not just for your sanity, but also for mine. Because I'm watching you and I'm seeing that you're finding this really difficult. You're not like portraying the true footballer that you are, because you're a nice footballer. Let's go and do something. Let's go try a different route." And he was like, "Yeah." And do you know what? We had tears. I'm sitting in the car and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I'm the worst dad in the world." But I'm genuinely trying to do it for him. But he knew as well, and it was only a little bit of time. Then he went and played grassroots. His first game, he got a hat trick. He started to do well, enjoy his football. Then he got back into another academy, and now he's like loving football again. So sometimes you have to take a breather from football.
To be fair though, James, from that 7 to 11, he's got foundation. Do you know what I mean? Like, so where he's gone away, he's got such an advantage on the other kids who he's playing against, which is great. And that's what I mean. I don't think people say to me, like, Bo had to have that 7 to 11 at the academy, in my opinion, to get that like, put down the foundation. You can't build a house.
I don't agree. So you're saying that there's not kids that have gone on maybe that 7 to 11 they weren't in academies and then they've gone on and had a career. There'll be a load of kids in grassroots that have been picked up.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's important. I think you think it's 4 days a week. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, play Sunday. It's 4 days a week to a grassroots player who's probably training just an hour a week and playing on a Sunday, a standard where they might be winning. The ones who will come through out of the grassroots will be developed. They'll have heirs. They'll be bigger, taller kids. It'll be very rare you're going to get a kid come out of grassroots football who has never been to an academy at 7 up to 12, who comes out and you go, oh my God, where's he been? Look at his feet. He's going past people like they've never existed. It won't. It'll be the bigger, taller, stronger kids that are going to be more physical.
It's getting a lot rarer. I mean, the under 21s that just won the Euros, it's around like 87% of that started at their academies when they were like under 10 and below.
Yeah. There's still 13% that didn't.
Yeah.
So like for every parent, there are kids playing. I see it. I see some kids playing grassroots and just thinking they just need a chance. They just need someone to come and watch them. They've got the ability. They just haven't perhaps been given that opportunity. And I also think, in a way, sometimes academies can coach like individuality out of kids. I see it all the time. You know, and when you're playing in a really good academy, the alpha male kids will get the ball and they'll run and dribble past that little kid that perhaps doesn't touch the ball as much. But if he's playing grassroots football, he's on the ball all the time. He's touching it. He's moving it. He's the man that makes things happen. And I'm not saying grassroots, by the way, this is not trying to say it. That's the way. But you've got to make sure that your kid's in the right environment to learn and touch the ball. Otherwise, you're never going to get any better.
Well, I made it as a footballer from playing Sunday morning football. That's what I played. Played grassroots football up to I was 12, 13, 14. You know, I always used to think, I don't think we'll see another Joe Cole. I always say that. I don't think, when Joe Cole was coming through at West Ham, I haven't seen a talent since, if I'm being honest. Someone who had that, could go past people, do skills, try stuff, flick it around, do back heels. I watch it now and I watch cricket, I watch football now and it's like Chris Tavray. It's safe. It's like I watch academy players now. It's get the ball, pass it, get the ball. We won't see another Joe Cole, but that's the way the game's going. That's what I don't understand now in academy football is at 7 and 8 at Freddie Academy at Chelsea, all it was 1v1, 1v1. Like for 2 hours, 1v1, 1v1. Then I go and watch the 15s and 16 plays and I don't see anybody beat a player anymore. So why are we doing the 1v1 to start with?
Yeah, because they're learning to touch the ball. They're learning attacking and defending.
Okay.
There's a ton of 1v1 duels that are always happening.
Where?
Like in moments throughout the whole game.
Let's have some questions, Sean.
Go on. Okay.
Last time we was on, Frank, we got some parents of academies to send some questions in and because everyone wants to know, how do you make a footballer?
Yeah.
What it takes. So we've got a few questions here that we're all gonna answer.
Okay, so the perfect coach does not exist, Jamie and Paul. But in your opinion, what are the most important qualities a coach should possess in academy football? And that's from Keep It on the Deck.
Frank?
Communication being a big one. I think you've got to be able to communicate your message or whatever it is you want to get across to the kid. I think a good example now, even my young boy Freddie, again, who's just turned 3 years, sort of different coaches and things he does. One at his nursery, another one at his play ball, another one at his football. And I see already, and this is a really young age, Freddie loves the one at play ball because he's just interacted with him. Oh, I like Spider-Man too, Freddie. Like, come on, let's do this. You know what I mean? Freddie's like, can't wait to go there. Another day, the other one who doesn't communicate, no matter what the content is. I think communication is a big one for me.
it's hard, the coaching, because, at Chelsea, they got 2 coaches for 16 kids. I find that impossible.
We don't say bad things about Chelsea on this podcast, by the way.
I'm not saying bad things. I'm just saying I think that's everywhere. I think to have 2 coaches for 16 kids, I don't know how you can teach the kids in a way. I don't think you can teach every kid, and that's a problem. I think with the money Chelsea have got and Category A academies, for me, 16 kids, I think you at least need 4 coaches, in my opinion. I think you need. What? Come on, they're buying Palace for 100 million. Ain't going to work to bring in a coach. I think you've got to have. I just find it hard. I do. In my opinion, I find it hard to be able to coach every kid in a session. In a session, and that's just my opinion. I mean, that's just what I see. I think it needs more individuality coaching.
Interesting.
Sorry, just on that point. Sorry, Jam, I know you can answer that, but when we went to New York, because the first time I encountered in first team football was having an individual coach amongst the staff. So Patrick Vieira was there as a coach, he's number 2, so the structured sessions would be obviously as we'd all expect. And then now and again, as you get, when you've got big enough squads now, there's always time you can take out the 2 centre forwards, 2 fullbacks, take them out, and then we'll go and do specific stuff. Just equating that into what you're saying, even more important at academy level when you're developing skills and individual skills, whether there is the room for the extra coach. Because I get that there's 2 of you, 16's a lot, like you say. Is there room for 1 or 2 more, whatever, that you go, right, we plan this session, right, pull out the fullbacks, let's get them doing that, receiving the ball and playing, or whatever it is, those specific things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think nowadays as well, I think not just in youth football, but also in the first teams, you've got to be almost like a psychologist with people. You've got to read, what's going on in their lives. Maybe young kids got a tough upbringing, he's single parent, his mum's taking football, what's going on at home. And you've got to read these kids, and you've got to talk to them, and you've got to almost be their best mates to a certain extent. They feel that they can talk to you about every single thing. And it isn't always just sometimes about football. It's about what's making someone be the best version of themselves on the pitch. And I think that's what a lot of managers are now. That's why a lot of managers sort of coming into the game maybe didn't play, but they're good psychologists. They understand what makes someone tick. Mourinho did that with Frank to a certain extent. He got into your brain, knew what you needed to make you go from being a top player into a great player. And that's where sometimes you've got to be that kind of coach.
Well, that links into the next question that's come from Coach James 95. Being a dad and a coach of 2 young boys, when would be the best time to stop being their coach and just be their parent?
No, I don't think never. I don't. I think they know him. If long as I think he's doing the stuff, when I'm telling Freddie stuff, it's owning that I'm seeing at Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? It's only I don't go watch him at Chelsea for 3 days a week and play on a Sunday, and then the following. Don't do that. I just get him to try and do the things that he's getting learnt at Chelsea to do them better. Because as I say, they haven't got all the time in the world just to look after Freddie. So I need to do that stuff. So the parent is the best coach if they know what they're talking about. And I say that because when they're watching a game, they're only watching their kid. They're not watching any other kid. I watch Freddie play and I'm like, oh my God, you give the ball away again. Oh my God, I could have done that better. And I'll find myself going when the other kid loses the ball. Oh, that was unlucky.
Yeah, you said
that was unlucky.
It was unlucky there, wasn't it?
That was unlucky, wasn't it? And I'm thinking, if that's my boy, I'm going mad. You know what I mean?
I know, but
and I'm the best coach because I've watched every touch of Freddie's, every touch. So yeah, I think long as he's not going against what the coaches are saying, because I don't think that's right. If they're asking him to do something, you're saying don't do that, then I think that's terrible advice. But he's going to be their best coach, the parent, because he's watching him every single minute of the game.
I don't really think it works having your dad as a manager or your uncle as a coach. It's never worked in the past, has it, Frank? We did all right. But no, I think it's a tough one, that, because when you have... I can think of some examples where it's so difficult, because the most important thing is, can your kid play? Because if you're picking your kid and he's not that good and there's other kids that should play him, or he plays more minutes than anyone else, it puts a lot of stress, not just on you, but on the kid and the parents, and everyone's going, oh, his boy stays on all the time. You've got to try and find a balance of being fair. But for a lot of parents, they're thinking, well, I'm out here, I'm giving up all my time. Why shouldn't my kid play? So there is a fine line with that one. And I think that's why when you coach the kids, it was good because you haven't really got, an ulterior motive. You're not thinking, well, he wants to play more than him. You just played the kids, deserving the time and tried to give everyone a fair crack at it. But being the parent isn't always that easy. Sometimes you just got to let them go.
Should we bring Perry in?
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah. I'm just going to interrupt the podcast for 30 seconds to tell you about We Make Footballers. We Make Footballers are the largest football coaching provider to children aged 4 to 12 in the UK, operating across 200 facilities. We focus on developing the individual, working on the technical and physical components of the game, and it's had amazing results, with hundreds of our ex-players joining professional academies and 4 of our ex-players currently playing in the Premier League. Our program is built around small-sided play using indoor and outdoor facilities. Visit our website, WeMakeFootballers.com, to see if we have a training facility in your area. Perry, welcome. Welcome back. This is a really cool concept, like Jamie's idea in terms of putting it out there to a parent who's given a great question, who's got a kid who's playing either grassroots academy, come in, get involved and be able to get the opportunity to just, ask questions to the panel. So, Perry, over to you. What's your first question?
Well, thanks for having me. My queries were more about, I think times have changed a lot since you lot's program or however it was back then with development. So I was curious of what development looked like when you lot were younger.
Well, ours was, I guess, unique. We had, our dads had played, which certainly helps. Academy football wasn't really anything like it is now because it was only really at 14 where you could sign schoolboy forms. Okay. Then you sign from 14 and then you could sign a pro as well. But up until then you could play grassroots, you go training with teams, but they had to be, certainly in the area a little bit like what you do now at Chelsea. But it was to a certain extent a totally different training outlook on how, you were trying to develop players. There was a lot more. It was a lot more game related, and you play 5-a-sides and matches. It wouldn't be as much technical work, I'd say, as what they do now, Paul. When you see it,
yeah. I mean, when I was playing Sunday morning football up to 12, and then I went to Watford, and then you're training twice a week at Watford, and then playing for your Sunday team on a Sunday. But then when I went to Arsenal, it was twice a week. Then play for Chelsea on a Sunday. The one thing we was talking about
from 12.
Yeah, from 12. But the one thing I was talking about earlier that I think's changed more than anything, because people go, oh, fitness, this and that, is the coaching. The coaching's gone to another level, in my opinion. I think I think that's the only thing that's changed when you look back on when I played, is the coaching. I think the coaching now is extraordinary. The one thing when I was growing up and playing, when you just said about pigeonhole, you had one position. I still am a great believer in that. In my opinion, I think you might be talented where you might have 2. I think 3 and 4, you have to play at that level. And with Khalil, you want him to play at that level where you're talking about playing for Chelsea, and going on and maybe, who knows, playing for like a Real Madrid. You have to be exceptional in one position. Okay. You have to be the best of the best. I keep on going back to, if me and you went to uni now for 4 years and you done woodwork and plumbing and I done woodwork, I bet my life I'm going to be a better woodworker than you are, because you've just done half on plumber. And I think that's where I used to sit there and I used to think, how does this work, right? You're at Chelsea, you're at one of the best academies in the world of football, and I'll go the world of football. Why are you buying someone from Southampton at 14 years of age or Brighton at 12? But I know now, because the kid at Brighton and Southampton has been playing in the same position for the last 4 years and has learnt that position. So he's going to be better than the kid who's playing there half the time, and the other time he's playing centre forward, left back, right back. I mean, the only place you don't play is goalkeeper, isn't it?
But me and you were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? Because we were talking about changing positions. And I told the guys, by the way, like how good Khalil is. So it'd be interesting to hear more about like your training program for him. But yeah, you were saying that he does really benefit from changing positions.
Yeah, I think he does, because he can do a bit of everything. So my thing's always been with him, wherever they put you, you still got to be the best on the pitch. So, because there's in to get through now, I think what we've seen is like, small example, like Wan-Bissaka at Palace. Everyone said he was a winger. But when they needed a fullback, but he could do it. So it's like, you kind of have to be ready for, I think you've got to be ready for whatever opportunity comes now, the way first team football is. Trent was a centre mid, he's ended up playing right back. So it's like, I don't think you can be pigeonholed nowadays.
Yeah, but how pigeonholed? Because you just said Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka, you say it was a winger, now he's a right back. But he wouldn't have been a centre forward.
Okay.
He could only play in them two positions.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Like
And
7 years old, he might have had opportunity playing in those positions. Like you were talking the
What I
other
was
day.
going to ask you is,
sorry.
you said it started at 14. What age would you not say in your craft you started doubling down?
But it's
mine was from about 7.
Okay.
From 7, I played centre forward the whole of my career. The whole from 7 till I was till Ian Wright coming at Arsenal. Till Ian Wright coming, I played centre forward.
I had a little bit of time to digest your first question and think about what does training look, how does it look compared to what it does now? And for me, it's actually quite simple now I thought about it. Growing up, all we used to do as kids was go in the garden, or when Frank came down to visit, or I'd go to Frank, was play football, non-stop. In the garden, that's where you learn, and it'll be keeping the ball up, it'll be shooting, it'll be having 1v1s, 2v2s, little games with your mates, and you go to the park and you find 10 kids and all of a sudden a game will come out and it became raw, real football.
Yeah.
Now, are you getting coached or are you just like playing against bigger kids? And like my brother was 3 years older than me and we used to go and do 1v1s, he'd kick lumps out of me. But I tell you what, they're the little things that made me a footballer.
Yeah.
And it was not going on your phones. It wasn't going on your iPads. It was actually just thinking, I'm going to go and make it like raw. My granddad would take me to the park and he'd clip balls to me and I'd try and keep it up with every single part of my body. And that was really what footballer was to me. And that was, I think, to a certain extent, what it was to you. Whether that's better than what the kids do now when they're training all day, every day and 2 hours at night. But that's all I did. And I'm sure that's what you did as a kid, Frank.
Yeah, I think we got lots of hours of work. I trained at Tottenham, Arsenal and West Ham from about the age of 10 or 11 up until I had to decide on West Ham because I didn't have to commit to a club at that point. So I had good sort of a spectrum of training, and it was quite simple when I look at what young coaches are doing now, academy coaches are doing now. Tottenham and Arsenal a bit more technical. West Ham was a bit old school in the academy in my time, and I remember a lot of physical work being a thing. I was lucky that West Ham had a great academy, a youth team manager, Tony Carr, who was a really good communicator, and I really enjoyed my time with him. So I sort of related to him, and then I started to bridge the gap up to the first team. But I do think that it's. When you mentioned the question of doubling down, are you talking about when you actually became like, now I'm really going to push on
really work on, this is my speciality.
Well, I probably did that from a very, very young age because we were talking a lot at the start of the podcast about, myself and Jamie having a football family. So it was almost like we were given a lot of pressure from our parents about what you need to do and how hard it is to make it and all those things. So I think it was always doubling down. The big difference I find now to being probably what your boy is getting is that my memory of coaching there was a much more, or games when it was like West Ham youth team against Tottenham or whatever through the academy, would have been my one-on-one battle with a midfielder I was against. It's quite simple as that sort of stuff. Yeah. I need to be better than him and run past him. He'll try and run past me. And then some other simple things. Nowadays, when I'm seeing the structure of how the teams are looking in academies, I haven't watched loads of it, I'm not going to lie, in terms of academy, but when I was at Chelsea, I watched some of the academy games on Sundays. They were doing things that we would never have thought about playing out from the back. Okay. Even in the first team football, I watched my games from early Chelsea or West Ham. If you actually watch a game, you go, God, life look different to what it looks like now. Miles different. A midfielder didn't have to drop down and get it on your edge of the box much.
The goalkeeper.
He used to smash, Peter Cheek used to smash up the Drogba, like, now we'll play up there. So I've got respect for where the game's gone. So I think you're asking a lot more of your boy when he drops back into the six. You were saying just before we came on about how he wants. I think it's good for him to understand what that role is.
Yeah.
But how many, you don't want too many roles, do you?
No, you don't.
Do you know what I mean?
I get that.
That's what I was saying. It's
funny
where
I was saying that because there was a stage where I was looking at him and it's almost like he started to have no identity.
Yeah.
So it's like you put him in the six, he could look like Kante. You put him at the back, he could spray the ball around like Trent. You put him further forward, he might look like a Suarez or a take him on tour, they say he's an English Neymar. So it's like I was getting a bit like, what do we do? Like at some stage, I think I've got to make a decision because I think what you expect from the academy is kind of for them to go, do you know what, we think he's this, but they kind of don't do that. I feel like if the parent pushes something, that's what they'll be. So I feel like it's it's a decision for me to make.
You know, you're right, but what I've found, and I'm not just at academy football, but I even think at top level, people are scared of making decisions. I think people are scared to go, you know what, that's your position. I think we work on law of averages, like as you say with a Wan-Bissaka. I think we get a load of wingers. If they don't work at winger, we'll go at fullback. If they don't go fullback, they'll go wing back. You know, when you say like a Neymar or like a number 10 or someone like or Messi or whatever, people don't want to make that decision. They think, oh no. When I think they should go, and this is what I say about playing in a position, learn that position and learn it. Ajax do it where you learn a position, and when you've conquered that position, and when people like Bergkamp and people like that who are up high, people like that at Ajax, then they move on to another position.
Yeah. Can I make a point there? Just a couple of quick ones. One is that I think you don't want to as well come away from the expertise of the academy coaches who have maybe seen it all before. A version of your boy, another boy. They might go, he was a great number 6 when he was a kid, but now he's a centre half. Yeah. So we didn't want to commit to him being a 6. He might have to learn it. And my experience of living that was Rio Ferdinand at West Ham in the youth team, who played as a number 10 in the Youth Cup final. And was a great number 10. I
think I saw that game. Yeah.
And then a year later, Harry moved him back. I think as he was sort of adapting into the first team, and went, but that boy. So then he went back to being a centre half. So he had those attributes of a number 10, which is why he was probably the only or the up and coming ball playing centre half coming through the country at the time. But then he had to learn the other part of the game, which was heading and defending and people running behind him. But luckily, he had all the attributes and wanted to learn. So I don't think it's as clear cut. I agree to a degree, a big degree with what you're saying in terms of the repeating of a position. You get better and better because you just know it and you learn it all the time. But I think there might be some other situations where maybe the coach is looking and go, hang on, let's just see it. Let's test him with that. Can he deal with that? Can he deal with that? And then, but at some point, like Rio, at some point, go, right, I'm a centre half.
But that's where you and I agree with most things you say, even on Sky, Matt. But this is where I can't have what you're saying.
But
the reason why, give me just 1 second. The reason why is because I think it's so important to learn and feel like, I'm not saying that you're going to become, if you're a left winger, you're all of a sudden going to start playing right back. But I'm just talking about learn different facets of the game. Like you've got to learn how to just be playing. If you can learn the number 10 role, learn how to get it off the back foot, because you don't know how your boy is going to end up. I know you think you do.
No, yeah, okay, but I'm not, what I mean when I say this, I don't know what position Freddie's going to play. Freddie might go and spout and go 6'3" and be a centre forward who like pins people. I don't know how big he's going to be, but what I'm saying is like. You're at Chelsea, you get there at 7, and at 14 they're buying someone from Brighton and they're buying someone from Southampton. Now, why are they buying that player from Brighton and Southampton? And the reason is because they keep on playing in the same position. So I went and watched the FA Youth Cup the other week. They played Palace. They got about 5 players from other clubs.
Well, that is really common. I mean, in the Carabao Cup recently, Liverpool's academy got a lot of praise, but when they delved deep into it, the majority got bought when they were 16.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can I? Because I've obviously seen a lot of your boys, incredible talent. Can I ask a question? What would a normal week look like for him, for Khalil?
Now?
Yeah.
Well, he's homeschooled now, so he gets a lot of hours.
How old is he, Perry?
He's 11. Year 6. So on a Monday, we're just talking about football.
Yeah, everything, schooling. So he's actually homeschooled. Okay, I didn't realise that. So he will. How much of that will be on his education? How much on his football?
It's pretty even. So it's football hours. My thing with him was always, because now we've got a culture of a lot of one-to-one sessions, a lot of group sessions. But if you're not going to go and do an hour yourself, there's no point. So he'll get up in the morning. He'll do his own little bits in the garden. Even recently, he's come to me, he's gone, Dad, I want to do, can I do 45 minutes barefoot work? He said he read something and Neymar said it helps build leg strength. I'm like, yeah, crack on. But if he hasn't got that in him, then all the one-to-ones and all driving him around the world, it's not going to help.
No, exactly.
So he kind of does his morning bits. And then, for example, on a Monday, he goes boxing at 11. After that, he studies for like 2 hours, I'm thinking Monday. Then he's got an evening training session. Then he chills off in the evening. He'll go to his mum's. Tuesday, what's he doing on Tuesday? He's got an art class in the morning, goes B Club. I'll get him from there. He goes Chelsea in the evening. Wednesday is a morning session with one of his grassroots coaches that he still sees. So he'll do that. Then he goes to study. Then he's got Spanish online. Then he actually does a bit of coaching with me. I got a little session out of
Barcelona, Real Madrid. Yeah, I know. I like your thinking. I know what you're saying.
So he does a little coaching with me on a Wednesday evening with the younger ones because he actually likes.
Would you have homeschooled him if he wasn't talented at football, or is this like something you've wanted to do?
The homeschooling happened because of lockdown.
Yeah.
So lockdown, he was home for 2 years or so. He was getting sent home a lot of work. For actually like a year, it dawned on me. He was getting sent home work. He was doing it, sending it back to the teacher. I was literally checking to see how it was marked. But he didn't need no help with anything. I was thinking, in my head, I think it's a bit strange. He goes to school, he just does it all himself. So I was like thinking it's not really that deep. And then he got signed at Chelsea in that period. So he was under 9. You was actually there at the time, Frank. So after that, I thought it might as well keep him home because learning-wise, he was doing very well in school as well. And then they were saying I was going to parents' evening, they're saying he's got to sit by himself, so no one can copy his work. And so I'm thinking he's being isolated anyway. And then now I'm thinking, so when he's ready to move on, he's still got to sit and wait for the rest, whether it's that week or however long they've got. So I thought his education can get pushed further if we focus on that separately. And then there's little things. So, for example, even with football, he's been, from he was an under 6, Palace had him with the 8s at pre-academy. So he's always been a bit ahead of his age group. And then he falls in a weird space because he misses the year above by like 5 days. So in Europe, he's considered a year above anyway. And it's almost like within your group at football or school, if you're ahead for me, everyone else is getting from you, you're not really getting much from the others. So I had to find a way to, I think if you can be special, you can't do what everyone else does. So you got to find some sort of program that's for you.
The homeschooling, like I definitely was seeing on your stories, you posted on Instagram during that time in COVID when you started doing it, and he's getting a lot of practice. I remember him doing kick-ups with a tennis ball. Like you were spending a good amount of time doing football during that time.
Well, there's nothing else to do. Okay. Lockdown, I was literally, if you got a kid that's playing football, and he was, under 7, they stopped the season, I think it was just before Christmas. And we've been working for maybe 2 years or however many years. Everything stopped. We couldn't just stop. So I can't think, he's never going to get signed in 2 years. We still had to keep things going. So whether we were doing sessions and police were coming and stopping them, or we had to keep going, sort of thing. Yeah. And then I was thinking about habits, and I'm thinking, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. So I think I said before, if he starts getting up we all start getting up at 11 midday, and you get into that habit for 2 years, it's going to be very hard to get out of that. So it was like a camp. I was up with him, we're up. He would even go park, do hill runs. So we kind of just kept active. And that's what had to be done, really and truly.
Is he reminding you of your dad?
No, you're more militant, I think. No, it's the same idea. Yeah. I mean, I went to school and it was a different era. Like I think that you've got more information. I think your information and how you put that together is founded on, you being, very articulate. You speaking about it as well, looking at it and what that means and what that will be for him. And that schedule that you put forward, mine was much more kind of structured of school and all my training, and then an extra bit from dad and a bit of hard nose, kind of like, this is what you need to do. So the idea is the same, and that's really well structured. And I get your thought process. It's obviously, it's funny how fate sometimes plays a part, and the timing of COVID there, which is a terrible thing for a lot of the world. You make good use of it, in a sense. You could focus on what you wanted to.
So I said to Sean, before COVID, he could probably do about 5 kick-ups. Come out of COVID, he can do kick-ups every part of his foot, off the wall and all. So got to use the time well. And even when we talk about hours, I think I said to Sean as well, I think some people think, if you're going to do all them hours, it's all going to be intense and up here. And you can spend an hour kicking the ball against the wall or doing kick-ups. Or, do you know what I mean? It's just enjoying the ball.
As I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm going, hey, you can't homeschool your kid. And I think, well, that's pretty much what my dad did with me. I didn't used to go to school that often. Like, you had a lovely education, you went to private school. My dad would take me and say, listen, don't go to school today, come with me. And I'd go to training, and I'd just be in and around the environment of football, and and that absolutely no doubt had an impact on making me a footballer, because I was just watching tactics, I was watching training, I'd go and pick up the balls, and it's like the certain little things that you talk about, the details that you have and what your life sort of throws at you, and I can actually see it, because as up there I had to almost check myself. I'm like, wow, that was pretty much what I did, but in a different way, and it's like a project, my dad was like that with me.
Considering sending him to secondary school, and because he's doing well, you kind of had a lot of private schools that would take him and what have you. I thought about it. We were really close enough. Right at the end, I kind of said nah, because I was going to ask you, like, distractions even. I'm even thinking about that from now, and I feel like time goes on. I feel like there's more now. They might be different. Like, you got phones, you got the internet.
Has he got a phone yet?
He's got a phone because he's with me, so he's got to be in contact with mum and his little team. He doesn't go to school, so I'm not going to not let him be in contact with, like, the other Chelsea boys and what have you. So he's got his phone, but it's monitored. And he's, right now, he's a sort of kid where you leave him to his own devices. He's got a PlayStation, you'll find him reading or drawing or doing Lego. But even now I'm thinking, it's easy. When they're a kid, it's easy to say, yeah, come, go and train all day. When he hits 14, 15, and he's got other choices that might be more appealing, that's when you're really going to see if he's where his head's at.
That's your challenge.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
That's your challenge, because
me,
right now,
all in place.
Yeah, right now you're like jockeying for position.
Yeah,
you've got your boy into a great position. He's a fantastic player. The challenge will almost come when he's out of your control.
Yeah.
When he's 14, 15, and then he's getting more information, like Frank says, from the club, and you can't affect his judgment, because he can turn around to you and go, Dad, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do this. That's when it becomes a little bit more difficult. Right now, you just got to try to make him the most well-rounded young man he can possibly be, and that sounds exactly what you're doing. But I'm not just keeping it real. That is the challenge, isn't it, Frank?
Yeah. Do you worry about, like, because he's homeschooled and he's only seeing kids at Chelsea, his social skills?
Everyone kind of said that to me at first, but then socially, even at Chelsea, for example, he trains with the 13s as well.
Do you find him talking to the players and getting involved?
Yeah, the feedback I've got from them is he's very sociable. He's just going to a group and what have you. So even he's good. So even part of the coaching, he's good with younger ones. And he's got cousins and what have you that he's in contact with and what have you. So I don't think it's that bad. I think depending on your setup, whether that could affect them. But I think he's all right.
Yeah.
If I could just intervene with a question, because I don't want to steal your questions and your time, but just for the Project Mbappe parents who take a lot of notes and really study what we're saying, there was something you guys touched on there where you were talking about the environment, and I know you've spoken about it before, Frank, where you said, like, Jamie's influence on you, like, when you were a young kid. I think that environment is so important that children have in terms of, like, the other kids that they mix with. So if Jamie, like, you were setting a good example to Frank, like, you were clipping the balls to the birdcage, Frank was copying it, you were showing him skills, and then that set good standards for you. Is that something that you're deliberate about, Perry, about who you put Khalil, like, next to and, like, with?
I used to worry about it a bit more because he was a sort of kid that when he was young, he got to play with a lot of older boys. So even at Lambeth, he'd be with boys that were 2, 3, 4 years older than him. So for him, he was very much of a kid. He'd see something and would try it. But I've always said it's easy. You can show a kid Neymar and he'll look at it's Neymar. But if you show him another kid, like, a year older than him, do, like, something, he's more likely to believe, I could do that. So when we went into the academy, that's why the age thing, I found that I was constantly like, who is there in the group to inspire him? And it got to a stage where I've seen him train 2 years up. So I'm not really going to, it don't matter, you're not going to find it. So he's got to find it himself. So that's how I've had to change slightly with him, because you can't always wait for someone else. So I'll say to him, for example, part of working, even on his performance, in my head, it was like, if you can get yourself to, like, your 7 out of 10, and still be the best on the pitch, you can kind of carry yourself. So even now, he could be the best on the pitch, but I might be like, that could have been a bit better. Remember, that sometimes it don't matter about being the best on this pitch. There could be another Khalil in Spain or Brazil. So you got to challenge yourself. You got to be your own competition.
Yeah.
So at some stage, I feel like you can't always be looking for someone else to inspire you.
Can I ask you a question, not about you, but it's actually about you and you learning how to do the best that you can. So you've got like the project Mbappe is, so I think about, say, Earl Woods with Tiger, Richard Williams with his girls, just did an unbelievable job to turn them into the greatest. How are you learning how to do that? Because it feels like that's what the trajectory you're on with yourself and your boy.
Well, I watched those documentaries, I read a lot, and I even said to Sean, so for football, me growing up, I was quite good. I was a left-footed player. I had good attributes. I was quick over a short space, good burst, what have you. I didn't have much guidance. I didn't really understand the process. So for even training, I'd like to play games. So same as when you was growing up, we'd play football at the time. School, first break, you go play football. Lunchtime, you go play football. Before school, you're playing football. So you kind of find your own way. Whereas with him, I thought if he can have the guidance, because I feel like I had attributes that if I had guidance, I could have got further. So if I could give him the right guidance and do the right research and what have you, then he's got a chance, really.
Yesterday when we were talking, you were even saying it come through in the way that you played, in terms of you might do something well, have a success, but it's almost like you didn't know how you did it, so you couldn't repeat it.
So even with recently, like How I Met You, he was training, learning technique and what have you. He scored a goal, I think, at under-9, which was like a slice with a hold. I've seen back the footage. Chelsea sent some footage out. I've seen it. I've watched it. I'm thinking, he doesn't know what he's done. So I used to be able to do things off the cuff sometimes. But it's like, you score a goal in the game, you might go and try and redo that after the game. No matter what you try and do, you can't redo what you've done. Yeah. I wanted him to understand exactly what he's doing. So that's been like a 2-year process. Now he's at a stage where he'll score a goal, be like, yeah, Dad, I used a slice or I drilled it or blah. Like he can explain everything. He can watch a game now and tell you exactly what technique that person used to score. So that's kind of where I want him to get to. So he actually understands what he's doing. So everything's got a purpose. Nothing's luck. Because you get a lot of kids that might hit a ball and they might slice it fades away from the keeper, but they don't have a clue what they've just done. It was just lucky timing at the moment, in that moment or whatever. So that's what I've been trying to work with him to. So basically what I've seen, if you can be a technician, because his attributes of being aggressive and quick, I think can carry you to an extent. But if you could be a technician as well, I think you've got a chance.
Yeah. Let's do it, Sean. Your idea, we haven't done it yet with Frank, about striking a ball. I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but I know you bought a ball here today.
I did.
One of the greatest midfield goal scorer.
Yeah.
When you're looking at your striking of a ball, Frank, for parents or someone that's trying to learn different ways to strike. I know you're looking at me.
I'm not.
Yeah. But when you used to, like, you're outside the box, what were you thinking when you were trying to score a goal or getting the right? Here we go. It's like getting the salt and pepper.
It's spikes. I wanted to trigger you.
No, let's get it. Leave.
a bit tight, those, I think. Go on, ask me a question. What you saying? So if I was outside the box,
yeah, when you were striking a ball, what was your technique when you were thinking about, and what part of the ball were you trying to connect with?
Well, I think probably I became more of a probabilities man around the goal. So outside of the box, when I used to train and I used to try and bend it in the top corner, I found that was the least probability. And I imagine I'd be a bit different to Merce there, because I can picture you now, like bending and feeding shots in and bending them around. And I didn't think that was my strong point. So quite quickly, if I was shooting from outside the box, it would definitely be an instep, like a non-side, not a bend, not just striking through the middle of the ball.
Can you show us on the?
But you had a thing though, Frank, where it would dip in front.
That came later. So I would literally hit simple, straight through instep, like a normal strike from the outside of the box. So the thing that I learned, and it was a bit by mistake really, was that when it was about how I planted my foot. So in midfield, when you're trying to move the ball outside the box, you've got to move it quickly, and there's not much time to get your shot away. A lot of times I would sort of shift it, and where I couldn't shift it far to get the shot, my foot would be closer to the ball, and my body would be more over it. So I ended up kind of doing this thing where I would sort of, it looks like a weird shape to the strike, but where you're over it, to get it to come to get it up as such, you'd end up almost leaning back a little bit, but you're still over the top of the ball. And so as I started to do it, it was random because you get movement, but it wasn't just like a clean strike. So I kind of clocked that, and I was a bit like, I want to practice doing that more. Like, what does my body look like, and how do I strike it? So I used to end up getting that, and so I'd move it, and I wouldn't shift it too far away from my body. I'd shift it closer, and my whole body would be a bit tighter, and then I would hit, and I would kind of get my body up right a bit, and then you'd get this movement through the air.
Like a wobble.
Yeah, like the wobble, which was great, because then when Didier came to Chelsea, Didier used to do it with his instep. So Didier would go with his instep, bang, and he'd get the up and down wobble.
You never did that.
I couldn't do it.
No, it was hard.
We
That's
used to
the
stand
tough bit,
outside, and it was almost weird how he would open up his instep so much that it would.
David Luiz could do it.
David Luiz came and did it, but I think working smart, I knew I couldn't do that. So I would never do it. And I knew I wasn't. I've scored a few goals that I kind of would have bent it towards the top corner. If you look at the majority of my goals, and the ones you're talking about, the 40 odd outside the box, a lot of them would be, I would just strike it at the keeper. I was never finding from
People
20
told me that.
Swing away from the
Never.
keeper.
No, people told me that.
Yeah,
People told me that. Clive Allen, I was at QPR once, and he was doing a coach. He said, when you're 1-on-1 with a goal, just smash it at the goalie. 9 times out of 10, you're not hitting the goalie. You're not hitting him. He'll either dive or you're not going to win it. I mean, and that was the thing. And the thing I was going to ask Frank was, when did you work out with... And I still don't see it today. You know, the free kick from out wide, you always made sure you bent it, so if everybody missed it, it had a chance of getting in the far corner.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That was probably training with Zola. When I went to Chelsea for the year, when Gianfranco used to train, and he scored a couple of goals in that year, and he'd done it before, where we'd stay out and practice free kicks. And again, he had a natural talent for the up and down sort of side foot or instep. He kind of wanted to go up and down, and it never really worked for me. But from a wide area, I could do it. I couldn't get the fast up and down so well. So I just practiced that. And it was an obvious thing. We had big lumps as well. We were ready to run and attack everything. So if you get the perfect curve in it, either they're going to get something on it, or if they don't, you score a couple like that. So that was, and then the most important one for me was obviously finishing inside the box, because that's where a majority of the goals, like 85% of goals, whatever, come within the post out towards the penalty spot. And then it was realising that a massive percentage of those are going to be first time. They're going to be one or two touch. Yeah.
Would you train with that? So would you train finishing? Would you constantly work on your finishing?
Yeah.
Like even with an empty goal?
No,
I find Freddie in the garden just smashing balls in the net. Just smashing balls in the net.
As a kid, I would have done, because you ain't got a keeper to work with. You know what I mean? I had 2 older sisters. They were coming out.
But what kind of finishing would you do with a goalkeeper?
All sorts. So I would do from receiving, like I talked about my position being a left 8 generally, and go back to your point of consistency of playing. I knew that's where I played, so I would always work on receiving from like an Iron Robin, but my coach, be Iron Robin, fizz it into me, and then I would open out and go pff, pff, bang, like just 12, 15 times. You've got to be careful, because you're going to end up like, this is when I'm playing regularly as well, like you've got to make sure your load's not heavy. So I'd do a day of that earlier in the week, sort of on a Wednesday, say, when I know I've got recovery to a Saturday, and then getting towards game day, Thursday, Fridays, those training days are lighter anyway. So then I get in and around the box and just work with get someone with me. Sometimes do one-on-one stuff, quick shifts, and you quickly get a great rapport with a keeper, whoever it is. At least 1 or 2 of the 3 or 4 keepers are going to be, I want to be there with you, and you have a bit of banter with them, and you say, what do you think of that? Take penalties all the time, all those things. It's repetition, absolutely.
I think that's something that when I think about Frank scoring, it's interesting he talks about the ball, but I've got a picture in my head of Frank, and his chest would always cover the ball. Yeah. So that's something for kids to talk about. So if you're listening to this and you're all your parents, go on YouTube and watch Frank's goals. You've got 41 of them. It's not hard to find. You'll
41
see
from outside the box. There's another 300 the rest of the goals to watch.
The one thing that Frank did is it talks about. So that was obviously something he did to subconsciously with his feet. I've got to do that. But it's the chest position of covering the ball. And I could visualize it now. And then you get your strike and you make it move. But body position, because as soon as, like Frank said, he might try to move back, but he was still covering it, because if you don't, ball goes up in the air. So it's so much of it is about that.
And it's a lack of, you don't follow through as much as well. But those are all things to play with. It's almost like if you ask, a great chef, how do you cook that amazing meal? They go, I can tell you the basics, I can't quite give you the magic. Do you know what I mean? Like, and with that, I kind of play with it. And don't get me wrong, I'll hit Rose Ed plenty of times. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not a problem in training as well. You know what I mean? It's not.
So do you remember an age you were when you suddenly just got a feeling and you're like, oh yes, I can replicate that?
Yeah, probably like if you're talking like top level, probably be my second season or third season at Chelsea.
Oh, so not even like your teenage years, not
No,
so when you're 12,
I knew
13.
I could strike a ball, and I know I knew I could strike a ball, and I would have been a goal scorer midfielder all the time to a degree, but not crazy numbers, but good numbers.
But I'm thinking much more around the practice though, because like
Practice, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, if we're all spent so many hours and hours and hours, like even just an amateur player, you're practicing, doing it hours, and then you can feel certain moments when you get improvement, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, let me lock that in. Let me now try and like experiment with that. I mean, are you thinking about like Khalil's
Sorry,
sessions?
just before you come to Khalil,
yeah.
because you've made me think about when you said there about your boy training with players that not Neymar, someone a year above him, but in being inspired by people relates to an 11-year-old, or because I was a 17-year-old, 16, 17, 18 at West Ham with Ian Wright coming to the club. And Wrighty was so charismatic and would get like, Lamps, you come in for a bit of training. I was like, see him right. And he would go, what about that finish? How'd you do that? Like, why'd you do that? This is what I do, would do that. And that inspiration to me, as much as I talk about your dad or Harry and like players that you're with that you can touch and watch Di Canio used to do. Di Canio used to do things. And I probably became that player in my own right later on at Chelsea, because by then I could find the bottom corner a lot in training. Like I would have a high ratio. It's only because I trained so much, because I saw Ian Wright do it. And if Ian Wright does it at West Ham when he's 34, I'm going to do it. You know, sorry.
That's all right.
I was just going to talk about. That's an interesting thing, because I remember even growing up, a lot more players were one-footed. Mercer was one-footed. I was one-footed, but I remember Paul Ince coming to Liverpool, and he'd come from Inter Milan, and Ince was a good player. You know, great technique, everything he did, very aggressive, and. So when you do like finishing after training, knock it to the, you know, whoever, say you'd shoot and then you'd be the one that sets it. Incy would always do left foot. So we had a bit of a culture at the time, and I don't know if it was the same at West Ham, where if you went your left foot and you messed it up, you get a little bit of stick. So people were a bit shy to do it. But Paul Ince was like, no, left foot, everyone. Everyone's got to use their left foot. So then we started to hit it with your left foot, and it wasn't that like an embarrassment culture. It was like, okay, unlucky, great try. And that's what you need, because even the senior players, I can visualise it now, they're playing for their country, they're still afraid to make mistakes in front of their peers. So that's sometimes where you've got to practice and not care what anybody thinks about you. And that goes back to Frank with his spikes, going out there and not worry about what anyone else thinks of you.
I've seen, even though he's still a kid, but Khalil's done that himself. So his original Chelsea group, if you watch them, a lot of them, they might get a free kick, they'll attempt to take it on their weak foot. He'll take a corner, he takes corners both feet. He takes free kicks both feet. So I feel like that is a key part of development. The players that you are around, they talk about some young boys, and like, oh, if he was at such club, those first, you talk about United have been in a bad way. Some of the young ones, you go, if they were around better pros, they might have pushed on. I think it is a big cog in development.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you lot was, did you not play a lot of futsal?
It wasn't a thing when I was a
No,
kid.
it wasn't a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've seen it on the telly on Eurosport. But no, I've never played it. Played it.
I think back, I was always.
Do you think it's good?
I do. I've been doing a bit of research. I've started a bit of a futsal thing now myself. He's always played, but then even like when I was doing the research, it shows you the amount more repetition you'll get. Like in a 40-minute game, receiving, passing, everything's quicker, so you learn to read the game a lot quicker. And then I think a lot of the South Americans done a lot of futsal in like you lot's generation as well. So I think,
I love it. I'm all for it. I think it's you use your different parts of your feet. You got to use your soul, because obviously the ball doesn't bounce very high. So I think it's a great thing. But you know, growing up, we used to just. I remember. Do you remember the hacky sacks, Frank?
Yeah.
So I had a hacky sack, and I used to take it everywhere with me.
Yeah,
just
I
keep it
remember
up
that.
and just practicing. Using different parts of your feet, and that is a little bit like when you play futsal and just trying to use different parts of your feet all the time, and just trying to whatever makes you better at honing your skills. That's really what you have to try and do. So with Khalil, how does he get? What's his off switch? What's his off button? How do you find that balance?
what do you mean off button?
Well, like in terms of, so he doesn't want to. Yeah, that you've told me yourself. He ain't got one.
Well, don't you remember when you first saw
Yeah,
him?
I know.
You was telling them off because he's playing. There was that some McDonald's thing. It's just a good kicker, but I think he was there as well.
I was there, yeah.
And
that was the first
he's
time I
playing
ever
like
see
he's
him. I was
playing in the
like,
World Cup
wow.
final.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
And even I was saying to Sean, he needs to just like chill out. What's wrong with
Yeah.
him? Sort of thing. But in his downtime, if that's what you mean,
Yeah.
he draws and when he does hit the PlayStation, you hear them talking with each other. He hits kid mode.
Yeah.
He's a kid. He's a kid.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to
I
say,
like
but
it when
yeah.
he, like when you said, does Lego as well. I like, sometimes we the kids, we let them
Right.
grow up too quick, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're kids, do you know what I mean?
Does anyone have a final kind of like what we've learned from this episode? Like, would anyone like to come through and say, look, this is one of the big takeaways that I've got from listening to Frank, which I think has been incredible, and I think parents are going to benefit so much from hearing you talk this way, because so much of your interviews are often about, you know, what's happening in the first team, but there's not very much where people are talking like this level, like, you know, what made the player. Would anyone like to?
Keep on working
Work
on
rate.
it. Just keep on work. Not just work rate of getting up and down, but working on stuff like Frank, working, finishing. You know, everybody needs to work on everything. I mean, look at me. I didn't have a left foot at all. Never had a left foot. I mean, at all. But I could kick it with the outside of my right, which I learned how to do. But it is just keep on. The one thing I always say, and Frank, prime example, if you don't work hard, you won't make it. I'm telling you that now. You can have I've seen Khalil, I've seen him. He has all the talent in the world, but the one thing he will still have to have is hard work.
Absolutely.
He will have to have that work ethic. And that is the one thing that's the same in anything in life, what you want to do. I think if you want to be a brain surgeon or whatever, you've got to put the shift in. You've got to put the shift in. You'll be born with a talent, and I think Khalil is one of them who's been born with a talent, but he'll have to keep on working and working, in my opinion. And that's the same with everyone, with Freddie, with anyone. The day they stop working hard, the day they'll be watching football and they won't be playing it at that level.
Yeah, I think the truth, there's no magic formula.
No.
And that's what we're going to find. Every time we do an episode, everyone's going to have their different journeys. And that's the beauty of football. And the truth is, it's such a hard journey, but if you can get there, it's the most rewarding, most fantastic life you could ever possibly have. But anyone thinks that you don't have to sacrifice and you don't have to do all the things that perhaps you don't want to do. If you don't believe that's going to happen, you might as well give up now.
I will say, I think it's harder for players like Khalil who are that talented. Do you know what I mean? You know, like I don't know, you haven't seen his boy play, but he's so talented, sometimes it becomes harder because you don't really
know what to do with him.
Yeah, and you don't feel that you have to work hard. Do you know what I mean? You think, oh, well, it'll just come naturally. And it does to a certain stage, but then you have to work hard. And it's hard sometimes to work hard when you've got that much talent, if you know. And I don't mean it in a... I just...
Well, I slightly disagree because I don't think he was born with a talent. I think his superpower is he takes information really well.
Yeah,
he's really disciplined.
Well, that's another thing everybody should do is listen.
I think that's why he is kind of where he was, because even in his group, when they were like under six, it was a strong group. They all had different attributes. He was very aggressive, hard to beat, and very quick. You had boys that were more technical. You had boys that were better finishers. But I kind of looked at everyone and thought, oh, he needs that, and that as well. So it's like,
but that's hard work.
He's worked at it.
Yeah.
So I think his discipline and work rate is his superpower.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing.
my thing is, well, some people are like, oh, you're going to put all... But I just think whatever you're going to do with a young child, young boy, for example, you want to be a footballer, I can only show him what it takes. Like, this is what it takes. So even if you don't make it in football, you've got the fundamentals. Whatever you're going to do, you've got to put that kind of... You've got to put everything in. You've got to...
Exactly. Work hard, yeah.
Will you be up for coming in again and speaking with us in the future, Perry?
If you shout me, Sean,
nice one. It feels like we need another part 3 of hearing about Khalil's journey.
100%.
Last bit, I think it'd be so beneficial for parents to listen to this and listen to Frank and all the attributes and the things and the sacrifices that he's made. Because it just shows it's a long road, and it doesn't mean that it's always going to go perfectly well at 14, 15, but you can make it if you want it enough, and I think that's why it's been so good to have you on. So thank you, Frank.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Thanks for having me.
Frank.
Thanks. Nice speaking to everyone.
Cheers, Frank.
We make footballers. We Make Footballers are the largest football coaching provider to children aged 4 to 12 in the UK, operating across 200 facilities. We focus on developing the individual, working on the technical and physical components of the game, and it's had amazing results, with hundreds of our ex-players joining professional academies and 4 of our ex-players currently playing in the Premier League. Our program is built around small-sided play using indoor and outdoor facilities. Visit our website, wemakefootballers.com, to see if we have a training facility in your area.